Chapter 4058. Don't worry, Brother Lin. Since we've found the root of the problem, I'm confident that I can succeed as long as we can solve the problem of the attribute conflict. The King of Junk promised. That's great, but how are we going to solve this problem now? Linny asked. The process of forging could not be stopped halfway, and with the current situation, the lump inside could not even be considered a semi-finished product. It was even more impossible to take it out now. If everything goes as expected, the forging pool will continue to be in this state. However, to be on the safe side, it's better for me to stay here and keep an eye on it. Therefore, I can only trouble Brother Lin to find some materials to make up for it, so that we can continue forging, the King of Junk said as he took out a pen and paper, then listed a list of materials and passed it to Linny. Linny took a glance and asked, "Are these materials common?" Most of them are common, so we should be able to buy them directly. However, there are two that we'll have to try our luck. Fortunately, we're not in a rush, and I'll find a way to control it. Even if it takes longer, it won't be a problem. Being slow is also a stage of forging, so taking longer might not be a bad thing, the King of Junk analyzed. All right, I'll think of a way to make up for the materials. I'll leave it to you, Brother Wang. Lin Yi immediately set off. Hong Merchant Guild. After Hong Zhongyuan went to Middle Island to take up his post, it was now Si Haixiao's territory. At this moment, there were two familiar faces in the private room. They were Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmen. Shopkeeper Si, we have a presumptuous request. We hope you can help us find someone. Nan Tianmen and Nan Tianba looked at each other and pleaded. Oh, who? Could it be about Lin Air? There's no news yet, but I've already sent people to investigate. Si Haixiao casually answered as he drank the high-quality spiritual tea. Actually, we already know Lin Air's true identity and his whereabouts. This guy is the Lin I mentioned to you before. However, we're looking for someone else. You met him once before. He's my unworthy martial nephew, Yu Jia. The Southern Heavenly Gate said awkwardly. He and Nan Tianba had already searched everywhere they could, but they still couldn't find any trace of Yu Jia. They had no choice but to run over to ask Si Haixiao for help. After all, Si Haixiao was a supervisor. Letting him borrow the eyes and ears of the Hong Ing group to find out Yu Zhi's whereabouts was much better than relying on the two of them to run around blindly. Ask about Yu Zhi? Don't you know the whereabouts of your own martial nephew? Si Haixiao was taken aback. Since we already know that Lin Yi is Lin Yi II, we should think of a way to deal with Lin Yi first. Why bother looking for Yu Zhi? Sigh, shopkeeper Si, there's something you don't know. We only learned recently that the culprit that killed third brother wasn't Lin Yi, but Yu Zhi's rebellious disciple. The South Heaven Gate briefly explained the recent events to Si Haixiao. Such a complicated inside story made Si Haixiao click his tongue in wonder. Yu Zhi killing his teacher. Although it had caused a lot of commotion recently, it was mainly focused on the three great pavilions. It didn't spread much in the marketplace. Furthermore, he had been busy reorganizing the Hong Chamber of Commerce recently. In order to erase the traces left behind by Hong Zhong's many years of business, he had no time to care about this kind of gossip. I didn't think that this kid would actually be a traitor despite looking so much like a dog. Fine. This shopkeeper will send a message to the old partner of the Hong Ing group who is in charge of the North Island and let him investigate for you. Since the matter has become so big, the eyes and ears in the North Island should take the initiative to pay attention to Yu Zhi's whereabouts. After Si Haixiao said this, he immediately wrote a note and had someone send a letter with a bird. Since they were both in the North Island, the news spread very quickly. In just the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Si Haixiao received a reply. Unfortunately, the other party's reply was that they didn't receive any news regarding Yu Zhi's whereabouts. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate were both extremely depressed. Now that the missing Yu Zhi had become the two brothers' laughingstock, if they let him go on like this, the prestige they had established in the Soaring Sky Pavilion would probably be completely gone. Seeing the two of them like this, Si Haixiao comforted them. Actually, you don't need to be too discouraged. That kid Yu Zhi can hide for a while, but can he hide forever? The Hong Ing group has so many eyes and ears in the North Island. As long as he appears, don't worry about not being able to find him. This is all just a matter of time. Also, isn't that Lin Yi ready-made? Although Yuja killed Nan Tianyong, there's still a problem with him. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate both nodded. We also know that Lin Yi isn't a good person. When he pretended to be second Lin and took away the Star Inkstone, it was actually because he had bad intentions. Everything started because of him. Otherwise, third brother wouldn't have ended up being killed by his own disciple. That's right. So this shopkeeper is prepared to help you deal with him. Si Haishao suddenly said. Huh. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other in surprise. Although Si Haishao had previously agreed to help find second Lin, the perfunctory meaning behind it could be seen even if they were blind. Why did he suddenly take the initiative now? Don't be so surprised. These 2 days, your uncle, Nantion Polaris, just happened to send this shopkeeper a letter. He asked this shopkeeper to help him teach a lesson to an enemy. He made this enemy when he went to the secular world to be a guide. Guess who it is? Si Haishao said with a playful expression. It can't be Lin Yi, right? The two of them instantly looked at each other. That's right, it's this Lin Yi. Speaking of which, this kid is really at odds with your family. In the secular world, he went against your uncle, and now he's going against the two of you. It's really rare to see a newcomer who dares to provoke others like this. Si Haishao laughed. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate both had an expression as if they had seen a ghost. They immediately reacted and said, since there's a grudge against uncle, then we can't let this kid go. Let's do as Shopkeeper C says and deal with Lin Yi first. Si Haishao nodded and said, now that Hongzhong is gone to the Middle Island, distant water can't put out a nearby fire. Moreover, it said that he's also in trouble, so it's easy for us to deal with Lin Yi. However, we still need to plan this matter first and find a good opportunity. It's best if Lin Yi takes the initiative to come to us. Otherwise, as the shopkeeper of the northern island of the Hong Merchant Guild, it wouldn't be good for me to go to the welcoming pavilion to find him. Yes, Shopkeeper C has thought things through. Southern Sky Gate agreed. Chapter 4059. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. The North Island is like this. There are no female cultivators here, so it can't be compared to the Middle Island. However, if Shopkeeper C wants to play, we brothers know a good place. Oh, since I don't have anything to do, why don't we go and relax together? Si Haishao immediately became interested and suggested. That's great. Shopkeeper C, as the host, we haven't had a chance to welcome you. This time, we could be the host and treat you as a welcome. The two nodded. For them, Si Haishao was a good backer, and they needed to find a way to curry favor with him. Since Si Haishao was interested, it couldn't be any better. They only needed to spend some spiritual jades to get closer to such a person. This was something they couldn't ask for more. After coming to the North Island, Si Haishao had been busy eliminating the influence left by the previous Hongzhong. After holding it in for so long, it was hard for him to restrain his desire. The three of them hit it off and immediately went out together. Although there weren't many female cultivators on the North Island, the place in Tianba and Southern Sky Gate brought Si Haishao to was the largest cultivator village around the three pavilions. The people here were all ordinary people. It was similar to the secular world, with restaurants, brothels, casinos, and other places of entertainment. Cultivators were humans too, with 7 emotions and 6 desires. Apart from cultivating, they still had various needs. When they needed to indulge themselves, they would often come to the cultivator village. Nan Tianba and the South Heaven Gate brothers had long been a frequent visitor here. There was only one common currency in the 5 great heavenly islands, and that was the spiritual jade. Since this was only a village where ordinary people lived, even the best brothel would not be able to afford such a small amount of money to the high and mighty cultivators. With just a few spiritual jades, one could easily play with the most beautiful and skilled female cultivators. Although they were just ordinary women and not superior female cultivators, if the quality wasn't good enough, quantity could make up for it. It was enough for Si Haishao to have fun. While Si Haishao and Nan Tianba were enjoying themselves in the cultivator village, Shanghai Laner, who was now grounded at home, by a Shanghai Tianhua, finally saw her best friend, Ning Shuefei, who came all the way from West Island. It was rare for the two girls to run into each other. Both of them cheered excitedly, adding a bit of liveliness to the usually tranquil Hualan house. They were also best friends who could talk about anything. Ning Shuefei and Han Jingjing were like-minded because of their similar hobbies, while she and Shangwan Laner were similar because of their similar personalities. Almost everything was a common topic between them. Come on, little Laner, quickly tell me about the rape. Oh, and about your kidnapping. You didn't explain it clearly in the letter. Ning Shuefei's eyes lit up with excitement, even though Shangwan Laner was heartless. When he heard this, his face darkened, and he said speechlessly, Fei Fei, you came all the way here just to ask about this? Aren't you here to comfort me? Sob, I'm so sad. Of course I'm here to comfort you, little An, but it's such a fun thing. As a best friend, don't you want to share it with me? I'm also concerned about you. Ning Shuefei rolled her eyes and quibbled. All right. You always use the excuse of comforting people to rub salt into my wounds. I'm really defeated by you. Shangwan Laner could only surrender helplessly. Although Shangwan Laner deliberately pretended to be depressed, she could no longer hold back her smile after a while. She laughed and played together with Ning Shuefei. Being pestered by Ning Shuefei, Shangwan Laner told her everything that had happened recently in detail. Ning Shuefei was amazed. Shangwan Laner didn't say it in detail in the letter before, especially when they heard that Little White took a giant scissors and wiped off Su Lingchong's penis. The two girls laughed back and forth, gave a thumbs up, and praised Little Curly Bear for being wise and capable. In the two things that Shangwan Laner had experienced recently, whether it was Su Lingchong's attempted rape or being kidnapped a few days ago, the protagonist was the same person, Lin Yi, in addition to herself. Why does the name Lin Yi sound so familiar? After hearing this, Ning Shuefei couldn't help scratching her head. After thinking hard for a long time, she suddenly patted her head and said, By the way, I've heard this name long ago when I was in West Island. Really? Shangwan Laner couldn't help but be stunned. Although she liked her junior brother very much, Lin, he was just a newcomer after all. If he was a little famous in the 3 pavilions of the North Island, it was reasonable, but even Ning Shuefei, who was far away in West Island, had heard of him. This was impossible, right? It's true. I told you in the letter before that I have a good friend from the secular world. Her name is Han Jingjing. She often talks about Lin Yi to me, but whether this Lin Yi is the same person as the Lin you mentioned, I don't know. Ning Shuefei tilted her head and said, Hey, I remember that junior brother is also from the secular world. Is the Lin Yi he mentioned to your friend really the same person? Shangwan Laner thought about it, and suddenly felt that it was very possible. She immediately suggested with great interest, Why don't we go to ask junior brother now? He, little An, aren't you grounded by your grandfather now? How can you go out? Ning Shuefei said with a smile, If I am alone, Grandpa will definitely not let me go out. But now you are here, Fei Fei. As the host, I will take you out to play. He will definitely agree. Shangwan Laner said with confidence. She was bored at home these days and wanted to take the opportunity to sneak out to play. Okay, but before looking for Lin Yi, I want to go to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce first, Ning Shuefei said. Why do you want to go to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce? To buy something? Didn't you just go to the auction in the far North Island recently? Shangwan Laner asked curiously. No, I'm going to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce to find a young man. Ning Shuefei's mouth curved slightly, like a kitten. Looking for a young man? Shangwan Laner was even more puzzled. She looked at Ning Shuefei up and down and asked curiously, Fei Fei, which young man are you looking for? Why are you looking for him? I won't tell you now. I will tell you when I find him. Ning Shuefei said mysteriously, You will know when the time comes. He has a lot of good things in his hands. Chapter 4060. Just as she had said, although Shangwan Tianhua had grounded her, he couldn't possibly ground Ning Shuefei, who had come all the way from afar as well. After hearing their words, she immediately nodded in agreement. Although there had been a kidnapping incident not long ago, this was still the territory of the 3 pavilions in the North Island. As long as precautions were taken, there was no need to worry about their personal safety. The two immediately went out with the little curly bear and went straight to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce in the inner street of the marketplace. Today happened to be the opening day of the inner street. They didn't even need to reveal their identities and directly walked into the gate of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce along with the crowd. On the North Island, female cultivators were extremely rare, especially the 2 women who were rare beauties. Even if they were mixed in a noisy crowd, no matter where they went, they would naturally become the focus of the audience. As soon as the 2 of them walked into the Hong Chamber of Commerce, a sharp-eyed shop assistant abandoned the other customers and welcomed them with a face full of joy. "Ladies, what treasures are you looking to buy? Do you want me to show you around the shop?" "No, I'm looking for a little shop assistant of your Hong's Chamber of Commerce," Ning Shuefei said impatiently. "Little shop assistant? I'm a little shop assistant, right? What can I do for you, miss?" The shop assistant was slightly stunned and then quickly smiled attentively. Such a beautiful woman came to find him. Was he going to have good luck with women today? Secretly pinching Laner, who was snickering, Ning Shuefei rolled her eyes speechlessly and curled her lips. "I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for another little shop assistant." As they spoke, Ning Shuefei and Laner, who were already the center of attention, became the focus of the audience. Everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. 2 drooling beauties were looking for a little shop assistant. What was going on? Was this what people said, fresh flowers are destined to be inserted in cow dung? Looking for a little shop assistant? Si Haixiao had just come back at this moment, although he was already drunk. But his strength meant that no matter how drunk he was, he wouldn't fall down directly. Hearing the sweet female voice coming from the crowd downstairs, he immediately poked his head out of the private room on the 2nd floor in a trance. After seeing Ning Shuefei and Laner, Si Haixiao's eyes instantly widened. What the fuck? These 2 girls were simply the best. Although Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate brothers had accompanied him to the brothel, they were only ordinary women after all. They could not be compared to the female cultivators on the Middle Island. They were on a completely different level, so Si Haixiao was not able to enjoy himself to the fullest. However, he did not expect that the moment he returned to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Si Haixiao's appetite was immediately aroused when he found these 2 exquisite girls that were rarely seen in Nakajima. He looked at the 2 girls lecherously while pinching his chin and muttering, "You're looking for a young man? Why did he look for a young waiter? Could it be that these 2 women are the mistresses of some young waiter?" At this moment, Si Haixiao was both drunk and lustful. As he thought about it in a daze, he immediately felt that it was highly possible. He had been busy dealing with the internal affairs of the 3 great pavilions during this period of time and hadn't officially walked around the 3 great pavilions. It was not surprising that he did not know Shangwan Laner. As far as he knew, there were no female cultivators on the North Island, so he ruled out the possibility that the 2 women were cultivators of the 3 pavilions. Since these 2 girls were looking for some bullshit young waiter, then they were definitely mistresses. Damn it. Just which fellow was it that was so lucky to get such a stunning and exquisite chick? What a waste of God's gifts. Even a manager like me doesn't have such luck with women. Thinking of this, Si Haixiao could not help but feel lustful. These 2 women were definitely ordinary women who had not seen much of the world. Since they were interested in a mere young waiter, then wouldn't it just be a matter of a word for him to get them into bed? Waha! God wants me to enjoy my luck with women. I really can't stop it. Si Haixiao immediately forced himself to calm down and couldn't wait to get up and walk downstairs. At the same time, he was still imagining the wonderful scene of 2 stunning beauties serving him together in his mind. That feeling was simply killing him. Just then, Lin Yi suddenly appeared in the crowd at the door. Lin Yi came here to buy the supplementary materials that the King of Junk had told him before. Although Hong Zhong was no longer here, these were basically things that could be bought normally, not precious treasures like the Star Inkstone that could only be found by chance. Therefore, He thought that Si Haishao would not make things difficult for him for such a small matter. Of course, if Si Haishao really did this, Lin he could also go to other places to buy them, such as asking Chun Heihu for help. However, Chun Heihu's business was not as big as that of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce. Even if he was willing to help, many materials were not in stock, and he had to find someone to buy them temporarily, which was a little troublesome. As soon as he entered the door, Lin he noticed the two women, Ning Shuefei and Shangwan Laner, who had become the focus of the crowd. The sharp-eyed little curly bear also found Lin Yi at once, and directly jumped over everyone's head and jumped on a Lin Yi's shoulder. "Little buddy, you are here. I was just looking for you." Ning Shuefei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she squeezed over with Shanghai Laner. Shanghai Laner had a strange expression. She pointed at Ning Shuefei and then pointed at Lin Yi. "Quack, he is the little buddy you are looking for. How could it be so coincidental? What's wrong?" Ning Shuefei looked at Shanghai Laner with a puzzled look. Shanghai Laner was stunned for a moment, and then said incredulously, "Your little buddy is actually my little junior brother Lin Yi that I told you about. Are you serious? How could this be?" Ning Shuefei was taken aback when she heard the words. Lin Yi looked at Ning Shuefei, and he was also very surprised. How did she come here? She even knows Shanghai Laner? Besides being surprised, he couldn't help but secretly wonder, how could this world be so small? I can even encounter such a thing. However, noticing the strange gazes of other people, Lin he suddenly realized that there were too many people in this place. It was better to ask the two women to go out and change to a quieter place to talk. However, before waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Si Haishao had already forced the crowd and squeezed over with the smell of alcohol. Si Haishao was originally obsessed with lust. Now that he saw the sudden appearance of Lin Yi, he was even more excited. Although he hadn't met Lin Yi before, he had seen Lin Yi's portrait, and the words of Shanghai Laner had also confirmed Lin Yi's identity for him. Previously, he was still thinking about how to find a way to trick Lin Yi out. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, Lin Yi actually took the initiative to come to him. Chapter 4061. How could this brat, Lin Yi, be able to obtain these two exquisite beauties? Today, whether it was for official or personal reasons, Si Haishao felt that he had to make Lin Yi kneel. Lin Yi, as a newcomer to the welcoming pavilion, you actually disobeyed the rules. You actually dared to bring two brothel girls out in broad daylight and swaggered around in front of my Hong Merchant Guild. What do you think the image of the three great pavilions is? Si Haishao reprimanded him with a righteous expression. Unfortunately, his pair of perverted eyes that occasionally glanced at the two girls betrayed his true nature. Previously, when he went to the brothel to seek pleasure, he heard Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate mention that the three great pavilions were extremely strict with their disciples. They would never allow them to go out and find brothel girls. Anyone who disobeyed would be severely punished. Of course, rules were rules. They were mainly targeted at newcomers. People like Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate never took these rules seriously. As long as they weren't caught on the spot, then it was useless. Because he had just returned from the brothel, Si Haishao subconsciously thought of the two girls as brothel girls. After all, even if they were Lin Yi's girlfriends, there would only be one of them. How could there be two of them together? No matter what, Lin Yi was a cultivator. It was impossible for him to find an ordinary girl as his partner. At the very least, he would find a female cultivator. However, female cultivators were very arrogant. Even Si Haishao only had one female cultivator as his wife. Only those brothel girls could do something like threesome. However, brothel girls were more daring and had more tricks up their sleeves. They could even do something more open than this. He had just played 1 against 3. What did you say? I advise you to keep your mouth clean. Be careful of the trouble that comes from your mouth. Lin Yi heard this, and his aura turned cold. Oh, with your insignificant strength, you still dare to pretend to be a tough guy in front of me? Si Haishao suddenly laughed wildly. He pointed at Lin Yi and sneered. Guest expert, help this shopkeeper suppress him. Inform the welcoming pavilion's pavilion master to come and pick him up. Just as he finished speaking, four unfathomable figures suddenly appeared around Lin Yi without warning, surrounding him tightly in the center. Lin Yi's heart tightened. These four guest experts were completely different from those he had seen before. In the Hong Chamber of Commerce, although the guest experts were hired by the Chamber of Commerce, there were also designated assistants. The original four guest experts had already followed Hong Zhong to Middle Island. It was an unfamiliar face who only obeyed Si Haixiao's orders. However, even if the person was different, to be able to become a guest expert of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he would at least be an expert above the gold core stage. This was beyond doubt. Seeing that Lin Yi did not dare to make a move, Si Haixiao smiled even more complacently. He turned his head to look at the two women lecherously and said, "These two beauties, didn't you come out to sell your goods for spirit jades? This shopkeeper has plenty of them. Furthermore, I guarantee that you will give more than that poor brat. Why don't you follow me in 2 days?" The situation suddenly changed. Ning Shuifei and Shangwan Laner were still a little confused at first, but now that they were so openly teased by the old man in public, they finally reacted. "You old bastard. What did you say I am?" Shangwan Laner could not help but gnash her teeth in anger. "You actually said that we are prostitutes? I will fight with you." Ning Shuifei was so angry that her pretty face turned red. Regardless of everything, she directly attacked Si Haixiao. The two of them, in terms of status, were at the level of little princesses. They were noble people who could not bear the slightest grievance. Now, they were being humiliated as prostitutes in public. Seeing that the two women actually dared to attack him, Si Haixiao could not help but be stunned. He subconsciously felt that something was wrong. However, he could not figure out what was wrong. He immediately greeted them with an obscene smile. "Haha, you have quite a character. This shopkeeper likes little chilies like you. Anyway, we are out to sell our goods. Don't tell me that if that brat Lin Yi can play, I can't." Si Haixiao said as he stretched out his hand to touch Ning Shuifei and Shangwan Laner. However, before he could succeed, 5 figures suddenly flashed behind the two women. Si Haixiao did not see what was going on. His face was directly kicked, and he was sent flying to the wall more than 10 feet away. The surrounding people quickly moved to the side. The 4 guest experts saw that the situation was not good. They immediately left Lin Yi and rushed in front of Si Haixiao, confronting the 5 people who appeared out of nowhere. As a result, the momentum of each side was actually equal. These 5 people, each of them was actually a golden core stage expert. Even if they did not count the tsunami, there were already 9 golden core stage experts confronting each other at this moment, which really shocked the surrounding audience. Golden core stage experts had always been a rare existence. How could there suddenly be so many of them? In a trance, there was a feeling that golden core stage experts were everywhere. These people are the core disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed in a low voice. The clothes of the disciples of the 3 pavilions were different. As long as you paid a little attention, you could recognize them at a glance. The 4 guest experts of the Hong Chamber of Commerce suddenly felt a thump in their hearts. 4 against 5, they were originally at a disadvantage and did not dare to act rashly. If the other party was really a core disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion, then they were a complete local bully. Once things got out of hand, they could not afford to provoke them at all. These 5 masters of Soaring Sky Pavilion were naturally arranged by Shangwan Tianhua. Shangwan Laner had just been kidnapped not long ago. Even if he, as a grandfather, was broad-minded, it was impossible for him not to take any precautions. What's more, now that Ning Shuifei, the real princess of West Island, had come, it was even more necessary to protect her. Otherwise, if Ning Shuifei had a little problem here, it would directly be a crisis for the 2 islands. If it was not handled properly, it was not impossible to trigger a war between the 2 islands, so they had to be careful. When the 2 sides confronted each other, the leader of the 5 masters of Soaring Sky Pavilion looked coldly at the 4 guest officials opposite him and said, "How dare you? These 2 ladies, one is the daughter of the owner of West Island, and the other is the granddaughter of the master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. You dare to insult them as prostitutes in public, and even touch them. I really don't know why the Hong Chamber of Commerce would send such stupid scum to be the shopkeeper. I must give an explanation to the big shot above me. If you dare to stop me, come and try. After that, the master of Soaring Sky Pavilion shook his body, and the next moment, he appeared directly above Si Haixiao's head. Without saying a word, he grabbed Si Haixiao's neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. The four guest experts were shocked by the information revealed by his words and did not dare to move for a long time. They could only watch Si Haixiao being abused. Chapter 4062. The four guests were so scared that they didn't dare to move. As for Si Haixiao himself, although he was tipsy and dizzy, he still vaguely heard the words West Island Lord and Master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat, and his tipsy feeling was mostly gone. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to wake up. His opponent's strength was much higher than his, and he didn't have any chance to resist at all. At this time, even begging for mercy was just wishful thinking. Just now, when he was blinded by lust, he had completely offended the two women, and even the big shots behind them. Under everyone's gaze, in front of the four guests of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, this master of Soaring Sky Pavilion began to ravage Si Haixiao bit by bit. Crack, crack, crack. Under everyone's gaze, every bone and meridian in Si Haixiao's body was mercilessly destroyed by a powerful and overbearing true qi until it was completely broken. At first, Si Haixiao still had the strength to scream, but after a while, he didn't even have the strength to scream. In everyone's eyes, he was like a duck that had been strangled. The blue veins on his forehead stood out, and he desperately screamed, but he couldn't make any sound. Looking at this scene, everyone whispered to each other. Regarding Si Haixiao's tragic end, they could only say three words: sad, ridiculous, and pitiful. Bang! The master of Soaring Sky Pavilion casually threw Si Haixiao, who had fainted, on the ground, and turned to the two women for instructions. Miss Ning, Miss Shangwan, do you want to take this person back and cure him? Although the other party was the manager of a branch of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, and under normal circumstances, except for the top management of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's headquarters, no one else had the right to punish him. But today's matter involved the two misses of West Island and Soaring Sky Pavilion, so Si Haixiao had only himself to blame. Even if they took him back and killed him, the Hong Chamber of Commerce didn't have the face to stop it. Hearing this, Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. They shook their heads in unison. Both of them were not ruthless people. Although this old bastard was extremely hateful, it was already miserable enough that he was tortured to this extent in public. Anyway, he did not take advantage of them, so there was no need to pursue him relentlessly. If that's the case, then I'll spare his dog life for now. The expert from the Soaring Sky Pavilion nodded and then retreated behind the two women with a solemn expression. Just like the others, Lin Yi was speechless when he saw Si Haixiao gasping for air on the ground. The previously high and mighty shopkeeper of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was now like a dead dog. After what happened today, the Hong Chamber of Commerce behind him would not protect him. In order to explain to West Island and Rising Sky Pavilion, they would even punish Si Haixiao severely. In short, Si Haixiao, the newly appointed shopkeeper, had only been in high spirits for a few days, but in the blink of an eye, he was finished. Little junior brother, let's go and find a place to have a good talk with me. When exactly did you become a staff member of the Hong Chamber of Commerce? Why didn't I know about it at all? Shangwan Laner pouted gloomily. The matter of the northernmost island. Lin Yi didn't tell her, and Ning Shuefei kept her in suspense. She was kept in the dark from the beginning and became an outsider. Compared to being slandered by Si Haixiao as a prostitute, this matter was much more serious. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Ning Shuefei immediately put aside the unhappiness just now and pulled Lin Yi excitedly. Then okay. Lin Yi nodded helplessly. Anyway, seeing that the Hong Chamber of Commerce was in a mess, he couldn't buy anything for a while, so he could only go with these two young ladies for the time being. Being surrounded by two beautiful young ladies on both sides, Lin Yi's treatment really made the people around him drool with envy, especially when they thought of the rich backgrounds of these two women. They were even more jealous. Any one of them would be a winner in life with both power and beauty, let alone one against two. This kid looked thin and weak. He didn't look like an expert, and there was nothing special about him. How could he be favored by the heavens? Of course, jealousy was just jealousy. Looking at the 5 soaring sky pavilion gold core stage experts scattered around the two women, with Si Haixiao's bloody example in front of them, no matter how unbalanced they could only watch helplessly and did not dare to make the slightest movement. Compared to Lin Yi's blessing of having two women, Si Haixiao's ending was really bitter tears. When he woke up from the unbearable pain all over his body, a whole day had passed. When he finally realized the situation he was in, he was so shocked that he couldn't help but gasp. As the manager of the North Island branch of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce, Si Haixiao was actually thrown on the street of the inner street of the market and left to fend for himself. What the fuck? Are you all dead? How dare you treat me like this? Today, I will kick all of you out. Si Haixiao's old face suddenly turned red when he was looked up and down by the strange eyes of passers-by, and he cursed angrily. Even if he made such a stupid mistake as yesterday, he was still a manager after all, and it was impossible for him to end up like a beggar on the street. Si Haixiao immediately cursed and tried to get up, but after struggling for a few times, he found that he could not stand up at all. Then he realized that the tendons in his limbs had been broken by someone with true qi, and he was now a useless man. But even so, Si Haixiao still did not lose his usual arrogance. He shouted to the passers-by, "Whoever comes over and carries me to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, I will give you a big reward." If what he said was on the open day of the inner street yesterday, maybe some passers-by who did not know the truth would be willing to give a try. But now it was not the open day, and those who could come and go here were all people of status in the North Island. Si Haixiao's stupid feat yesterday had already been spread by word of mouth, and no one would pay attention to such a blind fool. After shouting for a long time, seeing that the passers-by were still indifferent, Si Haixiao finally stopped shouting in despair. But he did not give up. Since no one was willing to carry him, he would climb over by himself. The inner street was so big that even if he climbed all the way from the street to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the distance was not too far. Once he arrived at the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it would be his territory. Under the gazes of the onlookers, Si Haixiao gritted his teeth and forced his way to the entrance of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. However, his subordinates, who were incomparably fawning over him, were only slightly stunned when they saw him. Then they immediately looked away as if they did not see him. Chapter 4063. However, the people in the store just looked at each other and then went on with their own business, with no intention of helping Si Haixiao at all. Humph. Good. Very good. Today, I've seen the fickleness of human nature. Didn't you see that my tendons and meridians were broken, so you think I'm a useless person? Let me tell you, I can recover from this injury by taking the holy healing medicine. Even if I can't, I'm still your shopkeeper, and your life and death are still in my hands. Very good. I've seen your performance. None of you will have a good ending. Si Haixiao kept scolding. At this time, the young man who was the closest to him and was often beaten by him a few days ago suddenly said, "I don't know if we will have a good ending, but you definitely won't. Your matter has been passed to the headquarters yesterday, and the higher-ups of the headquarters have already dealt with you. In order to give a satisfactory explanation to the master of West Island and the master of Soaring Pavilion, you have been completely removed from the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce and will never be employed again." What? That's impossible. You're talking nonsense. How dare you lie to me? Do you want to die? Si Haixiao's body shook in disbelief, and then he suddenly roared crazily. Lie to you? Open your dog eyes wide and take a good look before saying anything. A short-lived branch manager like you is truly unprecedented in the history of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Your Excellency can really be considered as the first person in history. The shop assistant sneered disdainfully and pointed at a notice pasted in the middle of the wall. It clearly stated the punishment of Si Hai Shao by the higher-ups of Middle Island of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce, and the seal was indeed the unique seal of the headquarters. In an instant, Si Hai Shao felt like he was struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. Just because of a drunken flirtation, the shopkeeper Fong, who was still high and mighty yesterday, was fired by the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce forever? Even though Si Hai Shao was lying at the door in a daze, the people of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce didn't care about him. They continued to do their own things. A new ruler brings a new minister. What they needed to think about now was when a new shopkeeper would arrive. As for an idiot like Si Hai Shao, they didn't care about him. In just a short moment, Si Hai Shao seemed to have aged a few decades. He raised his head with great difficulty and said, "Even though I'm no longer your shopkeeper, I'm still your esteemed customer since I'm here to buy medicine. I'm here to buy healing medicine, so I'm still your esteemed customer. Is this how you treat your honored guests?" The shop assistant who was closest to him couldn't help but sneer. "Honored guest. Could it be that not only are your tendons and meridians crippled, but your brain is also crippled? All right, to be able to do something as stupid as what you did yesterday, you don't have any brains to begin with. Then, I shall be merciful and give you a reminder. I'm sorry, but you've already been blacklisted by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. No matter if you go to the branch or the headquarters, we won't accept you." Si Hai Shao was completely speechless. He stared helplessly at the healing elixirs on the display case. "A good dog doesn't block the way. I advise you to find another place to lie down. Otherwise, if you affect the business of our Hong Chamber of Commerce, you won't be able to bear the consequences." The shop assistant sneered with an unfriendly expression. Si Hai Shao clenched his teeth. If it was in the past, he would have killed this fellow with a slap. It was a pity that he was a nobody now. Furthermore, he was a cripple who couldn't even walk. No matter how indignant he was, he could only swallow his anger for the time being. He crawled out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce silently. Si Hai Shao didn't give up just like that. He turned and crawled towards the Chamber of Commerce next to him. His top priority now was to quickly buy healing elixirs to treat his injuries. Even if he couldn't treat them in a short period of time, he had to at least stabilize his injuries and prevent them from worsening. The Hong Chamber of Commerce wasn't far away. It was the wealthy metropolis. Although their foundations were slightly weaker than the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the difference was limited. Si Hai Shao shamelessly crawled all the way to the wealthy metropolis. He couldn't care less about the strange gazes of the people around him. He shouted impatiently, "Someone, quickly prepare a level 5 meridian unblocking pill for me." All the tendons and meridians in his body had been shattered by someone's true chi. Only a level 5 meridian unblocking pill had a chance of treating such injuries. The employees of the wealthy metropolis were stunned. After whispering to each other, they didn't dare to make the decision on their own. They immediately invited Manager Hao out. "Oh, isn't this the new Manager C next door? What a rare guest. May I know what orders you have for my humble shop today?" Manager Hao appeared to be warm on the surface, but everyone could see the hint of mockery hidden in his eyes. Furthermore, he had no intention of helping Si Hai Shao up from the start. Si Hai Shao suppressed his anger and said, "I need a level 5 meridian unblocking pill. Prepare for me." A level 5 meridian unblocking pill? Huh, this is a rare big deal. Manager Hao raised his eyebrows. Then, he said regretfully, "It's a pity that our humble shop doesn't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill in stock at the moment." "What? No stock?" Si Hai Shao almost vomited blood when he heard that. Whether he could recover from his injuries and find a chance to make a comeback depended entirely on this level 5 meridian unblocking pill. How could the wealthy metropolis not have it? Unbeknownst to him, it wasn't that the wealthy metropolis did not have it in stock. It was just that Manager Hao didn't want to sell it to him on purpose. After winning the last auction in the extreme North Island, The Hong Chamber of Commerce could be said to be like the sun at high noon. Even the wealthy families would have to tolerate such a competitor. There was no need to offend the Hong Chamber of Commerce for a stupid trash like Si Hai Xiao, and it was not worth it. If we don't have a level 5 Meridian unblocking pill, then there should be a level 4 Great Recovery pill, right? Si Hai Xiao didn't want to give up, although the level 4 Great Recovery pill was not as effective as the level 5 Meridian unblocking pill. It could at least stabilize his injuries. Unexpectedly, Manager Hao shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have it either. Someone bought it out of stock some time ago." "You don't have it either?" Si Hai Xiao was stunned. If it was worse than a level 4 Great Recovery pill, other healing pills would not have any effect on his current injuries. Si Hai Xiao had no choice but to crawl out of the wealthy metropolis and turn to other merchant unions. His purpose was obvious. He was still looking to buy a level 5 Meridian unblocking pill and a level 4 Great Recovery pill. However, the reply that the other merchant unions received was the same. They were all out of stock. This time, no matter how slow Si Hai Xiao's brain was, he finally realized that something was wrong. These merchant unions were obviously looking out for the Hong Merchant Union's face. They didn't dare to sell to him at all. Chapter 4064. However, Si Hai Xiao did not give up. Even if he had to crawl all the way, he had to ask all the chambers of commerce in the inner street. He did not believe that all the chambers of commerce would ignore the large amount of spiritual jades and follow the Hong Consortium's lead. Finally, when Si Hai Xiao climbed to the point of exhaustion and was about to give up, he saw a 4th grade Great Recovery pill on the display of a store called the Central Chamber of Commerce. Si Hai Xiao was overjoyed. Even if there was no 5th grade Meridian unblocking pill, this 4th grade Great Recovery pill was a lifesaver for him. Si Hai Xiao hurriedly crawled into the door of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He pointed at the display case and shouted, "Guards, I want that 4th grade Great Recovery pill. It's on display. You can't possibly lie and pretend that you don't have it in stock, right?" The manager looked at him in surprise and smiled. "Sir, you must be joking. This is business that comes knocking on your door. As a businessman, how can I reject it? Since you want it, I'll get someone to pack it up for you. As for the method of payment, would you like to swipe the spiritual jade card? Or, of course." Si Hai Xiao took out the spiritual jade card from his bosom with great difficulty and handed it over to the steward. He was secretly rejoicing in his heart. Fortunately, he had earned a lot of spiritual jades over the years. This was the capital for him to stage a comeback in the future. However, a moment later, Si Hai Xiao was dumbfounded. The spiritual jade card had been frozen and could not be swiped at all. This news caused Si Hai Xiao to spit out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone. All of his spirit jades were on this spirit jade card. This was his entire fortune and his life. Not only was he tortured into a cripple, but he could not even use the spiritual jade card that was his last hope. Si Hai Xiao almost fainted in front of the Central Chamber of Commerce in despair. Gathering his last bit of spirit, Si Hai Xiao crawled out of the door in a daze. However, he did not know where to go. There was no way out. This time, he really didn't have any ideas. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from beside him. "If you want the elixir, follow me." Si Hai Xiao looked up in the direction of the voice and found that the person who spoke was a mysterious person wearing a black windbreaker. Even his face was covered by a black bamboo hat, making it impossible to see his face clearly. "Are you talking to me?" Si Hai Xiao had already lost all hope. At this moment, he was like a drowning man grasping at his last life-saving straw. The mysterious man did not reply, but just lowered his head and gave him a meaningful look. Then he walked to the side. Si Hai Xiao was confused, but he still clenched his teeth and followed after them with great effort, hoping to get lucky. In any case, he was nothing now, and he was penniless. He was a complete cripple with a rotten life. There was nothing to be afraid of. As if he was waiting for Si Hai Xiao, the mysterious man deliberately walked very slowly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they finally stopped in front of a grand and luxurious tea house, and it was called the Central Tea Party. Si Hai Xiao couldn't help but feel puzzled. Look at this name. Could it be that it was opened by the same company as the Central Chamber of Commerce? Speaking of which, as the former Four Directions supervisor of Hong Ing Group, Si Hai Xiao had specially investigated this Central Chamber of Commerce before he came to North Island. This was a business that had only recently risen to prominence. However, in just a few months, they quickly occupied all the islands, even the middle island where the competition was the fiercest. Their Chamber of Commerce appeared at the same time. Si Hai Xiao used the Hong Ing Group's intelligence system, but in the end, he still could not find out the owner behind the Central Chamber of Commerce. He only knew that this person was very mysterious and had a very terrifying power. The Central Chamber of Commerce was not like the other chambers of commerce, which grew slowly from small to large. It gave people the feeling that it had grown from nothing to something in just a few days. Suddenly, it was like a spring breeze. Thousands of pear trees bloomed, and suddenly, it was all over the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage. He followed the mysterious man all the way into an elegant private room. Seeing that the mysterious man sat down and faced him, Si Hai Xiao braced himself and said nervously, "You were looking for me?" Before he finished his sentence, the mysterious man did not speak, but took out a grade 5 meridian conduit elixir and placed it on the table in front of Si Hai Xiao. This is for me?" Si Hai Xiao couldn't help but swallow his saliva, his eyes shining as he stared at the grade 5 meridian conduit elixir in front of him. This was the only elixir that could save his life now. However, Si Hai Xiao was not a fool. No matter how much he desired it, he dared not reach out to take the elixir. He could only rub his hands awkwardly and say, I don't have spiritual jade." "You don't need spiritual jade. I'll give it to you," the mysterious man said calmly. Si Hai Xiao was elated, but he still suppressed his greed and said, I think that I have no value now. I wonder if you have value. You just haven't realized it," the mysterious man interrupted. "Oh." Si Hai Xiao was stunned, not understanding what the other party meant. "As long as you promise to work for me wholeheartedly, this grade 5 meridian conduit elixir will be yours," the mysterious man stated. "All right," Si Hai Xiao agreed without hesitation. He had nothing left now. No matter what he did for the mysterious man in the future, it would be better than being a cripple waiting for death. The mysterious man nodded in satisfaction and said, "I heard that you started out in the intelligence department. Not bad. I have an organization in my hands, and I'll hand it over to you in the future." "Oh, I'll take charge. What I need to do?" Si Hai Xiao's eyes lit up. The mysterious man smiled faintly and said, "It's very simple. Help me find some people with potential but evil intentions. For example, people like you." "Huh?" Si Hai Xiao suddenly felt that his brain was not working properly. It was easy to understand finding people with potential but evil intentions. What kind of request was that? There's no need to ask why. As long as you agree, I'll give you a brand new future. Your status won't be lower than the manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As for the power, it'll be beyond your imagination. The mysterious man's tone was calm, but it sounded strangely enticing to Si Hai Xiao. "All right, I agree." Si Hai Xiao nodded immediately. "Very good. From today onwards, you'll be the manager of the Chamber of Commerce in the North Island. Of course, this is only your public identity. As for your secret identity, it's the team leader of the intelligence team in the North Island," the mysterious man said calmly. "Huh?" Even though Si Hai Xiao had already thought of countless possibilities in his mind, he could not help but be shocked when he heard the mysterious man's words. Chapter 4065. One simple sentence from the other party, and Si Hai Xiao became a shopkeeper again. What's more, he became the leader of the intelligence team. Life was indeed unpredictable. This great rise and fall had come too quickly. Just as Si Hai Xiao was so shocked that he didn't know what to say, the mysterious man took out another bottle and placed it beside the Great Meridian Channel unblocking pill. He said, "Drink this bottle of medicinal liquid now. It won't affect your body, but you have to take the antidote once a month. If you don't have any ulterior motives, I will give you the antidote regularly." Si Hai Xiao's heart sank. There was no free lunch in this world. The mysterious man gave him such a huge benefit, but there were conditions. Haha, there's no point in hesitating. Do you think that I'll let you leave this room alive if you don't agree after I've said so much to you? As he spoke, a towering aura erupted from the mysterious man, causing the entire tea party to tremble. Even with Si Haixiao's experience, he was still dumbfounded by this terrifying aura that he had never seen before. Not to mention that he was now a cripple. Even if he was at his peak, he would probably be no stronger than an ant in front of this mysterious person. Si Haixiao had no choice. Since things had come to this, he could only crawl to the table, pick up the bottle of medicinal liquid, and drink it. He didn't dare to have any ulterior motives. You're quite sensible. Go and have a good rest. Go officially to the Central Chamber of Commerce tomorrow. The mysterious man waved his hand lightly. Yes, I'll take my leave. Si Haixiao excitedly took the Meridian Channel Conduit pill and kowtowed to the mysterious man. He crawled backward out of the private room. There was already a servant waiting at the door to help him change, shower, and recuperate. After Si Haixiao left, the door inside the private room suddenly opened automatically without any warning. The mysterious man's domineering aura dissipated instantly. He kowtowed respectfully to the private room inside, not daring to cross the line. It's settled. He'll officially take office tomorrow. I'll personally supervise him during this period, the mysterious man said respectfully. All right, you may leave. A woman's voice came from inside the private room. Yesterday, after leaving the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi and the two ladies found a clean and tidy restaurant. Although it was far from being as high-class as the Soaring Sky Pavilion's Splendid Sun House, and it didn't have spirit energy delicacies that easily cost hundreds of spirit jades, it was just some ordinary dishes that had nothing to do with cultivation. However, it was still very delicious, and it had the warmth of a home. The 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion core disciples had been following the 3 of them, constantly monitoring everyone's movements. With Si Haixiao's appearance, they had to be extra vigilant. It would be a dereliction of duty if another blind person came to disturb the mood of the 2 young misses. However, under the strong request of Shangwan Laner and Ning Xuefei, they did not enter the private room. They could only be on standby in the surrounding areas. Only Lin Yi and the 2 women were left in the private room. There was also a little curly bear who was busy eating and drinking. I didn't dare to ask more last time in a hurry. It turns out to be Miss Ning of West Island. How disrespectful. Regarding the matter of the northernmost island, many thanks for your help. I can't thank you enough. Engrave it in my heart. Lin Yi raised his glass and thanked Ning Xuefei. If I knew you were Lin Yi, I would have saved you even more. This is what I should do. Ning Xuefei's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but look at Shangwan Laner. He thought that she said this because she was Shangwan Laner's best friend. Love me, love my dog. Ning Xuefei smiled slightly. When they were on the northernmost island, she didn't know about the matter between Shangwan Laner and Lin Yi. Her words were referring to her other best friend, Han Jingjing. After the contact on the road, just now, she could be sure that this was the Lin Yi that Han Jingjing had been yearning for day and night. However, she didn't want to break the window paper for such a fun thing. It would be good to wait until the time to give them a big surprise. Well, you 2 don't have to keep me in suspense anymore. Little fellow, what happened? Quickly tell me honestly. Shangwan Laner couldn't wait to urge. Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei looked at each other and no longer hid it. They talked about the matter in the northernmost island to her. After listening to the encounter between the 2, Shangwan Laner was amazed for a long time. She couldn't help but sigh that the world was really too small. They could even know each other like this. But then she wondered, little junior brother, how did you get injured at that time? Is the northernmost island so chaotic? Yeah, I wanted to ask this question too. Lin Yi, you were injured quite badly at that time. Ning Xuefei said curiously. Although she had a guess, it was just a guess. Lin Yi hesitated for a while, but thinking that these 2 weren't outsiders and had a close relationship with him, they wouldn't betray him. He lowered his voice and admitted, Miss Ning, you must have heard about what happened that night. Zheng Tianjia died, because of a cauldron explosion. Actually, it was my doing. Ah. The two women were shocked when they heard this. Zhang Tianji's status was not much inferior to theirs. His death had caused quite a stir in the past. According to the elders in the family, if it wasn't for the Dan-god Zhang Liju personally coming out and confirming that this guy died because of his cauldron explosion, Zhang Dongjue would have sent out the elites of Zhongdao's Dan Hall. They didn't expect that the cause of such a huge incident was Lin Yi. After being stunned for a while, Shengwan Laner suddenly praised him excitedly. "Little junior brother, you're really amazing." Zhang Dongjue was someone Grandpa met when he brought me to Zhongdao. He's not a good person. I heard that a lot of girls in Zhongdao were harassed by him. "Little junior brother, you're doing the people a favor." Ning Xuefei asked curiously. "Then why did you kill him?" "Oh, I know, it must be because he saw that you had so many elixirs that you couldn't buy even if you bought them. So he wanted to rob them." Linny smiled and shook his head. "That's not it. Miss Ning should have an impression of my conflict with him. I bid against him at the auction and offended him. He didn't plan on sharing Tian Chan's matter with the two girls. After all, there wasn't a need for it. One more person knowing would mean one more trouble for Tian Chan. It was better not to mention it." Chapter 4066. Right. I said he's a bad guy. "Junior brother, you did a good job." Shengwan Laner chimed in. She suddenly paused and pinched the little curly bear's neck, saying, "You're a foodie. Why can't you change your bad habit of licking all the dishes first? We haven't touched anything, but the dishes on the table are all covered with your saliva. How can we eat?" The little curly bear was caught off guard and choked. As soon as Shengwan Laner loosened her grip, he immediately spat out the food in his mouth all over the table, and then he burped with satisfaction. Lin Yi and the other two looked at each other and were speechless. They stared at the little curly bear for a long time and said helplessly, "Let's order another table." "I haven't eaten enough." Seeing the little curly bear's innocent expression, Ning Xuefei felt funny and distressed. She quickly helped him out and changed the topic, saying, "Since you're so familiar with me and little Lin, why don't you be our tour guide and show us around in the next few days? I've long heard that there are many scenic spots in the North Island. Although I've been here many times before, I always come and go in a hurry and never have a good time. I'd like to, but I'm a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion. According to the rules, I can't go out at will," Linny said with a wry smile. Although he had this eldest senior brother who was now in charge to help him bear the burden and secretly disappear for a while to look for the king of scrap weapons, it was not a big deal. At most, people would think that he was hiding in the cave for closed-door training. However, if he swaggered out with the two young ladies to play, it would be too eye-catching. "What should we do? Little Honor, do you have any good ideas?" Ning Xuefei turned to ask. Although she was the princess of the West Island, every place had its own rules. She was not the kind of ignorant little girl who took herself as the center of everything and didn't care about the life and death of others. "Well, let me think." Shangwan Laner rolled her eyes and patted her head, saying, "It doesn't matter. I got an idea. As long as my grandfather arranges a position for you, they can't say anything about you." "Position? What position?" Lin Yi asked with a strange expression. "I don't know. Anyway, I will definitely let Grandpa think of a way. This problem will be left to him to worry about." Shangwan Laner said indifferently. "All right." Lin Yi could only nod in agreement speechlessly. As for the casting, he could only put it aside for a couple of days. Anyway, the king of Junk had said that it might not be a bad thing to maintain it for a longer period of time, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Since they were scared by Si Hai Xiao before, the two girls did not have the mood to continue playing today. After having a meal with Lin Yi, he quickly returned under the protection of the 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion core disciples. Early the next morning, a transfer order was suddenly sent to the Welcoming Pavilion. Everyone in the Welcoming Pavilion was shocked. The newcomers of the 3 great pavilions were all gathered together to listen to their orders. Everything was done in a very formal manner. There was a deacon who was in charge of conveying the orders of the Elders Guild, who personally appeared and accompanied him. And there was Yu Yin Feng with a pale face. After a meeting of the Elders Guild of the North Island, Lin E. of the Welcoming Pavilion is appointed as the reception deacon of the West Island. He is in charge of receiving Miss Ning, a guest from the West Island. He is also responsible for all the matters of her travel in the North Island. If she encounters any problems, she can act at her own discretion without asking for additional instructions. The deacon read the transfer order in public. As soon as the words came out, there was an immediate uproar. Even Hu Yunfeng had an indescribable look of astonishment on his face. Reception deacon of the West Island? What kind of position is this? I have never heard of it before. The point was that it was personally appointed by the Elders Guild, and he had the right to act at his own discretion. It didn't sound simple at all. Under the envious eyes of the crowd, Lin Yi received the transfer order, but he was secretly speechless. Shanghai Tianhua, the top tycoon, is really leisurely and carefree. He actually thought of such a unique title for me. It can be said that he took a lot of effort. However, just as Lin Yi took the transfer order and was about to turn around and leave, the deacon suddenly said, "Little brother Lin Yi, wait a minute. I have a private letter from Pavilion Master Shangwan here. Please take it with you." Boom! The crowd was even more excited. Shanghai Tianhua, the Pavilion Master of the Rising Pavilion, actually gave a private letter to a newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. The weight of this letter is more enviable than the inexplicable transfer order just now. Damn it! How many generations of good fortune does Lin Yi have? Most of the newcomers were just watching the fun, but Hu Yunfeng, the Pavilion Master of the Welcoming Pavilion, had a pitiful expression, as if he had eaten shit and had to savor it slowly. Shangwan Tianhua was a high and mighty peak-level existence. Even with his status as the Pavilion Master of the Welcoming Pavilion, it was difficult for him to even speak to him face-to-face, let alone form any sort of relationship with him. Just what had this Lin Yi done to deserve such special treatment from such a powerful figure? Even Hu Yunfeng was in such a state. Kong Mingming, Murong Zhen, and the other rivals who regarded Lin Yi as a thorn in their side were so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Although the sun was still shining brightly, their hearts had already fallen into an ice cellar, frozen into a pile of frozen lumps. Lin Yi didn't care about this group of people who were so depressed that they vomited blood. After receiving the private letter from Shanghai Tianhua, he turned around, walked to an empty place, opened it, and read it carefully. "Lin Yi, this old man thinks that you're smart and dependable. You have a lot of potential, and this training is a rare opportunity. I hope you'll do your best and protect the princess. Be a qualified personal bodyguard for the Island Flower." Close Master of the Island Flower? The last sentence in the letter made Lin Yi spit on the spot. He felt that he was born to do this. Wherever he went, he had to do this work. It was like this in the secular world, and now he was on the Heaven Stage Island, but he still couldn't escape this fate. As soon as he finished reading the letter, the gathered newcomers were in an uproar again. Lin Yi looked up and saw Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuifei, two little beauties with powerful backgrounds, smiling sweetly and waving at him not far away. With the Princess of West Island in one hand and the Princess of Chongtian Pavilion in the other, looking at the backs of Lin Yi and his companions, people in the Welcoming Pavilion were completely petrified. They all sighed in their hearts. As a newcomer, he should learn from Lin Yi. He is a real winner in life. If we can't find a strong backer, I think we can give up on Lin Yi. Meng Tong sighed, faintly behind the crowd. Chapter 4067. Just like what Meng Tong had said, at least for now, they were no longer a threat to Lin Yi. Even if they did not give up, they could only swallow their anger for now. Bringing two beauties to tour the North Island, in the eyes of anyone, was a heavenly task. Lin Yi, on the other hand, did not have such dirty thoughts. However, he had been on the Heaven Stage Island for more than half a year, and he had never had such a good time. It could be considered as a rare, relaxing experience after cultivating hard. However, just as Lin Yi was accompanying the two ladies to tour around, a piece of heavy news suddenly spread throughout the North Island, becoming the new topic of conversation after a meal. The former manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Si Hai Xiao, who had molested the two princesses in public, had now become the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce after he was abused into a cripple. His meridians were all broken, and he was forever removed from his position by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. How could he be promoted so quickly? This Si Hai Xiao doesn't look like much. How could he be so capable? Lenny could not help but be puzzled. Such a bad old bastard. There are actually people willing to hire him as a manager. Is this Central Chamber of Commerce sick? Shanghai Laner said angrily. Even if she was simple and did not hold a grudge against Si Hai Xiao, it would be strange for her to be happy when she suddenly heard this kind of news. Ning Xuefei also frowned, but said with some doubt, Central Chamber of Commerce? This name sounds familiar. It seems to be in the limelight recently. I don't know why, but I also feel the same way. Lin Yi also frowned. He did not know what Central Chamber of Commerce was, but this word made him feel like he had heard it before. Although the three of them were surprised and puzzled, they were having fun and did not pay too much attention to it. Si Hai Xiao had already paid a heavy price previously. As long as he did not provoke them again, he was just an unrelated passerby. At the same time, the two brothers Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmin were beating their chests and stamping their feet. What waste of alcohol. Si Hai Xiao had such a good backer. He had just gone a little closer to him, but now he was pushed to the bottom. Not only had they lost a backer, but they had also been severely reprimanded by their uncle, Nantian Aurora, in his letter. Si Hai Xiao was someone he had paid a huge price to finally raise to his current position. Just because these two fellows had brought him to a brothel to have fun, they ended up playing with him until he became an idiot with overflowing sperm. This was great. All his previous efforts had gone to waste. He had wasted an astronomical amount of spirit jades. Not even a sound was heard. Just as the two brothers were regretting their decision, they did not expect to receive such a piece of news. Si Hai Xiao had miraculously regained his position in the blink of an eye. When Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate received the news, they immediately made their way to the newly opened Central Chamber of Commerce. As expected, they saw the high-spirited Si Hai Xiao. Manager Si, we finally found you. We haven't been able to find you for the past 2 days, and we've been extremely worried. Nan Tianba and the Nan Tianmin brothers rushed over with faces full of joy. Were you really looking for me everywhere? Si Hai Xiao's expression turned cold. The miserable experience from before had already become a shadow that he could not get rid of for the rest of his life. That was his most desperate and helpless moment. However, these two people did not show up from the beginning to the end. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. How could he not bear a grudge? Seeing this, the two brothers hurriedly explained, It's true. It's true. Speaking of this, it's all our fault. We shouldn't have brought you to that kind of place to get drunk. Otherwise, such a big thing wouldn't have happened. Actually, after sending you back to the Hong Family Chamber of Commerce the day before yesterday, the two of us also drank ourselves into oblivion. When we woke up, it was already yesterday evening. When we heard that something had happened to you, we searched everywhere for traces of you. However, we couldn't find you. Hearing the two of them say this, Si Hai Xiao's expression became much more relaxed. He had already left with the mysterious person yesterday evening. It was normal for the two brothers to say that they couldn't find him. All right then, this old man will believe you for now. This matter will be over for now. Fortunately, this old man had the help of a benefactor. Otherwise, the two of you would probably have to collect this old man's corpse. Si Hai Xiao was half afraid and half glad as he said this. Yes, shopkeeper Si, you're truly blessed by the heavens. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate wiped away the cold sweat on their foreheads. They had finally tricked this old thing. With their way of doing things, they would always support the strong and trample on the weak. When Si Hai Xiao was successful, they naturally wanted to get closer to him. As for whether Si Hai Xiao came to look for him when he was in trouble, only they themselves would know. Seeing Si Hai Xiao sitting on a specially made wheelchair, Southern Heavenly Gate asked with a face full of concern, Shopkeeper Si, how are your injuries? Do you want us to get some healing medicine for you? No need. This old man's injuries aren't too serious. I only broke a few meridians. I've already taken a 5th grade meridian unblocking pill. It's only a matter of time before I recover. You don't have to worry about me. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, although these injuries can be healed, this old man must take revenge. Forget about the 2 girls. That Lin E is the main culprit that caused this old man's tragedy. If I don't take revenge, I'm not a man. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, that's right. We must find a way to kill that brat Lin E. He's too despicable. However, I heard that he's always with Shanghai Laner and Ningxue Fei. He's also surrounded by the 5 experts from the Rising Sky Pavilion. It's not a good time to make a move on him. The future is long. Isn't it just a few more days? This old man still has this much patience. Si Haixiao's eyes were filled with hatred. He then said, this old man has made a comeback, but I haven't had the time to celebrate. Apart from the 2 of you, I don't know anyone else on the North Island. Why don't we go for a drink and have some fun? Since Shopkeeper C has given the order, we wouldn't dare to disobey. The 2 of them immediately smiled and said. The 3 of them immediately found a top-notch restaurant and chatted happily. However, this time, Si Haixiao had learned his lesson. He didn't dare to mention anything about finding women again. After all, he was forced to take the poison. If he fooled around all day and didn't do anything serious, he would be finished if he angered the mysterious person behind him. You 2 are the local bullies of the North Island, so you have a deep understanding of all aspects of the North Island. I have a question to ask you. I don't know if you have ever heard of people with potential but evil intentions? Si Haixiao said, weighing his words. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate were stunned. They then blurted out, isn't that you, Zhe? Chapter 4068. Si Haixiao could not help but curl his lips. Yuzha had already disappeared, and not even a shadow could be found. What was the use of mentioning him? He continued, is there anyone else other than him? Southern Heavenly Gate frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and said, yes, there's someone called Kong Ming Ming in the welcoming pavilion. Some time ago, because I suspected that he was Lin Air, I specially observed this person. He's very sinister and full of evil tricks, but he has some brains. Rumor has it that this kid is vengeful. Even when the newcomers fight in the arena, he will use underhanded methods. Many people have been tricked by him. Oh, that's interesting. Si Haixiao's eyes lit up when he heard this. Southern Heavenly Gate laughed. What's even better is that this guy is the same as us. He is also a mortal enemy of Lin E. His hatred is not shallow. Si Haixiao was even more satisfied. He immediately said, that's great. Then I'll trouble you to arrange for this person to meet me. I have great use for him. Although Southern Heavenly Gate did not understand, since Si Haixiao had said it, he had no reason to refuse. He immediately set off for the welcoming pavilion. During this period of time, Kong Ming Ming had not been doing well. It could even be said that it was the worst period of time since he came to the Heavenly Stage Island. Not only was he defeated by Lin Yi last time, but now that he had lost his backer, Su Lingchong, as a new deacon, he had become somewhat awkward. The newcomers no longer took him seriously, and it was basically impossible for him to advance further. Even the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, had begun to distance himself from him. Recently, all the big and small matters had been handed over to the newcomers to manage, giving him fewer and fewer instructions. And for a position like his, once there were no missions, it meant that he had no power. He was not far from becoming a transparent person. He could only watch helplessly as Lin Yi latched onto a super thick thigh like Shanghai Tianhua, while his own situation was deteriorating. If this continued, it was almost certain that he would be stepped on by Lin Yi. Kong Ming Ming was currently surrounded by a sense of crisis. However, he had no idea how to deal with it. Coincidentally, the Southern Heavenly Gate had come knocking on his door. It was as if someone had sent him a pillow just as he was about to doze off. However, as much as Kong Ming Ming believed that this was a rare opportunity, he still called Pin Liang along for safety's sake. If something happened, he'd at least have someone to cover for him. Pin Liang, on the other hand, wanted to see what these people were up to. He agreed without hesitation and followed them. He brought the two of them to the restaurant. To put it nicely, the meeting between Kong Ming Ming and Si Haishao was like old friends at first sight. To put it bluntly, they were birds of the same feather. After Kong Ming Ming's flattery, the atmosphere at the table immediately became harmonious, and the two sides talked happily. I heard that you guys have a grudge with Lin Yi as well. Si Haishao finally brought up the matter at hand. That's right, shopkeeper Si. You don't know. Lin Yi and I have a blood feud, and so does Brother Zhong. Our grudge can't even be finished in 3 days and 3 nights. Kong Ming Ming said bitterly. That's perfect. We are on the same side. The enemy of an enemy is a natural ally. Zhao Ming, if you're willing to surrender to me, that's fine. If you want me to protect you in the future, that's fine too, but you have to do something first. You need to prove your loyalty to us, right? Si Haishao squinted his eyes and smiled. Kong Ming Ming was overjoyed when he heard this, but he was a little troubled. I won't hide it from you, Manager Si. A while ago, we took the initiative to find trouble with Lin Yi. We wanted to eliminate him in one fell swoop, but the result wasn't what we wanted. He dodged it. Seniors, Nan can also testify to this. Si Haishao glanced at Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate. Seeing the two brothers nod their heads, he said indifferently, since you've already failed, it can't be considered a proof of loyalty. Since you guys could mess with him once before, you can naturally mess with him again now. What do you think? But these days, he's been with the two misses. If we want to deal with him face to face, it won't be easy. After all, we're just rookies in the welcoming pavilion. Doing this is no different from courting death. I hope Manager Si can understand this. Kong Ming Ming said with a bitter face. That may be the case, but if we can't deal with him face to face, can't you think of another way? If you don't even have this much ability, even if I accept you, what's the use? Si Haishao curled his lips and said, This old thing, he wouldn't release the eagle until he saw the rabbit. Kong Ming Ming thought to himself. Then he thought of something and said, I've thought of a way. Last time we went to mess with Lin Yi, he seemed to be forging. Now that he's busy playing with the two misses, he definitely won't have time to care about that place. What do you think, Manager Si? Si Haishao's eyes lit up when he heard this. He stroked his beard and said, Not bad. This is a rare opportunity. Once something like forging starts, it can't be stopped. Even if he's not here, the forging will still continue. If you guys take this opportunity to mess with him, even if you can't do anything to him, you'll still make his heart ache. Then it's decided. As long as you do this well, it'll be your proof of loyalty. In the future, I'll take good care of you. You'll be able to achieve great success. Okay, I'll leave now. Just wait for my good news, Manager Si. Kong Ming Ming said excitedly. He turned around and left with Zhong Pingliang. He'd suffered a huge loss at Lin Yi's hands last time. This was the perfect time to get back at him and make the guy feel heartache. He didn't have to fight Lin Yi head-on anyway, so there was no risk at all. On the way, Zhong Pingliang was worried. He wanted to send a message to Lin Yi, but he didn't even know where Lin Yi was. He could only follow Kong Ming Ming and play it by ear. When they reached the cave entrance, Kong Ming Ming jumped in impatiently, with Zhong Pingliang following closely behind. At this moment, King of Junk was studying the forging notes his Shifu had left him. Although the accident from before seemed to be safe, and there was still room to salvage the situation, King of Junk was truly scared out of his wits. While Lin Yi was collecting materials, he had to calm down and review his forging plan from start to finish. He had to review the notes, and perhaps he'd be able to find his blind spots and prevent similar mistakes from happening again. It was because he was too focused that he didn't notice Kong Xiaoming and Kong Xiaoming sneaking in. It was only when the two appeared behind him that he finally reacted. Who's there? The King of Junk was shocked and jumped up from the ground. Chapter 4069. Damn, when did Lin Yi get such a helper? Fortunately, I was cautious enough to prepare the alchemic firebomb in advance. Otherwise, today's effort would have been in vain. Kong Ming Ming spat with lingering fear. Pinliang, on the other hand, was speechless as he looked at the trash king on the ground. He didn't even know that the two of them had snuck in like that. Wasn't this guy a little too unwary? He was knocked out by Kong Ming Ming with just one move, and Pin Liang didn't even have a chance to sneak up on him. While Pin Liang was thinking, Kong Xiaoming had already stepped past the king of junk and reached the edge of the pool. He looked at the strange lump of metal in the middle of the pool and smiled coldly. This is the weapon Lin Yi is crafting, right? I heard he even asked Hong Zhong to get him a lot of valuable materials. Let's take this thing away today. Don't you think it'll hurt him to death? Before Pin Liang could say anything, Kong Xiaoming reached into the pool and fished out the lump of metal. The pool looked as calm as a pool of stagnant water, so there wasn't much of a threat to it. However, right after that, Kong Ming Ming's expression changed abruptly. Roar! A hoarse and miserable howl instantly penetrated the entire cave. Even the birds in the forest outside were startled and flew away. Fish! Accompanied by a scalp-numbing sizzling sound, a layer of skin on Kong Ming Ming's hand was burned off. His hands swelled like carrots at a speed visible to the naked eye. He hurriedly let go, and the iron lump fell on his feet with a bang. Another layer of skin was burned off. Don't be fooled by the forging pool's lukewarm appearance, as if it was no different from an ordinary pool. However, the temperature inside was not something a human could endure. Even if he was a foundation establishment expert, his body was still made of flesh and blood. In the eyes of experts, Kong Ming Ming's action was purely a case of an old man hanging himself. He was tired of living. It's so hot. It was scalding. It was scalding. Pin Liang didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he watched Kong Ming Ming rolling on the ground. He was still thinking of a way to deal with this situation. He didn't think that the idiot would fall into the trap of his own accord. This was good. He didn't even have to think. Without another word, Pin Liang grabbed Kong Ming Ming's ankle and dragged him out of the cave. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Kong Ming Ming's screams finally subsided. He looked at Pin Liang and said weakly, "What the hell was that? Why was it so hot?" Pin Liang couldn't help but laugh inwardly. What else could it be? What? Boss Lin Ming 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 hand? You even dared to use your hands to directly take the things in the forging pool. Even with your stupid intelligence, it was truly shocking. But on the surface, Pin Liang's eyes rolled as he analyzed. Xiaoming, I suspect that this is a trick Lin Yi prepared for us. He used to do this all the time, pretending to be lax to lure us in. Think about it. After what happened last time, this place is obviously exposed. If it were you, would you still stay here to forge? Kong Ming Ming paused and shook his head decisively. Of course not. If it were me, I would have moved a long time ago. I wouldn't stay here and be targeted by others. That's why he should have moved a long time ago. That's why he made this piece of junk to lure us here to destroy it. This is exactly what he wants. Pin Liang said confidently. That's right. I was suspecting that this piece of junk doesn't look like a weapon at all. It's a trap. Lin Yi is really cunning. He even got someone to guard this place, making it sound like this piece of junk is something good. I wouldn't have fallen for it otherwise. Kong Ming Ming cursed angrily. He was the same type of person. When he analyzed Lin Yi, he naturally had the worst of intentions. He didn't know that he was the one who brought this upon himself. There was only one real reason. He was too stupid. Seeing that Kong Ming Ming had taken the initiative to explain himself, Pin Liang happily agreed. The two returned to the restaurant and reported to Si Hai Xiao. Si Hai Xiao was stunned when he saw that Kong Ming Ming had bandages all over his body. He looked like he was seriously injured. You were beaten up by Lin Yi? No, Manager Si, I was tricked by him. Kong Ming Ming started complaining with tears and snot. In summary, it wasn't that he didn't do his best. It was just that Lin Yi was too cunning. After listening to Kong Ming Ming's story, Si Hai Xiao, Nantiamba, and the others looked at each other. But thinking about it carefully, Kong Ming had his reasons for being tricked this time. If he didn't make Kong Ming Ming hand over his proof of loyalty, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to trick people like this no matter how cunning he was. Fine. Although you didn't succeed this time, even if you didn't make any contributions, you still worked hard. This old man has seen your sincerity. Consider this your proof of allegiance. In the future, This old man will naturally protect you, Si Haishao said coolly. Kong Ming Ming was overjoyed. He patted his chest and said, "Thank you, Manager Si. If you need anything in the future, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." "Very good. Let's see what you do next." Si Haishao nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pin Liang. "Zhao Ming is under me now, and I've acknowledged him. But you, Pin Liang, I can't just take you in just because you're Zhao Ming's friend. You have to contribute something, or you'll have to be put on probation." Pin Liang nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pin Liang. Pin Liang thought about it and pretended to be troubled. "Manager C, I also went to destroy things just now. It's just that Zhao Ming was in front. He was scalded the moment he picked up the metal lump. I could only save him first. I didn't have a chance to show off. That may be the case, but I treat everyone equally. Zhao Ming suffered so much before I accepted him. If you want me to accept you as well, you can't have no contributions at all." Si Haishao shook his head. That's right. This old man wasn't easy to fool. Pin Liang was secretly panicking. These people were obviously targeting Boss Lin Yi. If he didn't find a way to sneak in now, it would be very difficult to get inside information about them in the future. Suddenly, Pin Liang's eyes lit up. "Right, Manager C. Aren't you looking for people with bad intentions, but potential? I happen to know one, and it's a rare beauty." Chapter 4070. As expected, as soon as Si Haishao heard the word beauty, although he was still sitting in a wheelchair and had yet to recover from his injuries, he became visibly excited. He quickly asked, "Oh, what beauty? Quickly tell this old man." Zhong Pingliang smiled and said, "Her name is Murong Zhen. She's a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion, just like us. She also has a grudge against Lin Yi. She was with us when we went to deal with Lin Yi." "There's such a thing? Isn't she a natural ally?" Si Haishao was even more elated. He immediately said, "Pin Liang, hurry up and invite this Lady Murong over. If she can satisfy me, I will remember that you have done a great deed." "Got it." Pin Liang answered and left, leaving Kong Xiaoming looking like he'd just eaten shit. During this time, Murong Zhen had always been Kong Ming Ming's favorite. Although he failed to deal with Lin Yi, he was still satisfied with Murong Zhen's service. This coquettish woman was much better than ordinary women. She was also a master at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. Conquering her in bed was a different kind of pleasure. But now, Zhong Pingliang wanted to introduce her to Si Haishao. "Fuck, I didn't take the initiative to share with him. Does he have to discuss me like this?" Kong Xiaoming cursed at Pin Liang in his mind, but he didn't dare show it on his face. It was pointless to say anything else now that things had come to this. He could only swallow his pride and accept it. Soon, Murong Zhen's coquettish figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Si Haishao almost couldn't hold himself back when he saw her natural seduction. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and hurriedly said, "This old man is Si Haishao. I'm a manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce. I've long heard of Miss Murong's beauty. You're indeed a beauty. How pitiful." Si Haishao couldn't be blamed for losing his composure. He was a lustful man. He had no resistance to women's charms. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a stupid mistake. Since he came to the North Island, he had only been taken to a brothel by Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmin once, and the women he played with were just ordinary women. Murong Zhen, a naturally seductive expert in the foundation building realm. There was no comparison at all. Manager C really knows how to speak, praising me until I'm embarrassed. Murong Zhen pretended to be shy as she covered her mouth and smiled. She then glanced at the crowd from the corner of her eyes and said in a coquettish manner, "I'm tired from walking such a long distance on such a hot day. Shopkeeper C, are you so heartless to not even arrange a seat for him?" As a veteran, Si Haishao understood Murong Zhen's seductive gaze. He gestured to the southern heavenly gate beside him to give up a seat and said with a lecherous smile, "Lady Murong, you must be tired from your journey. Why don't you sit next to me? This seat is specially prepared for you." Manager C, you really know how to dote on me. I'm embarrassed. Murong Jun smiled tenderly and immediately sat down beside Si Hai Xiao. Her petite body naturally leaned close to him. Seeing Si Hai Xiao's lecherous expression, Kong Mingming couldn't help but curse in his mind. Murong Jun really was a slut that could be slept with by anyone. She even threw herself at an old man like him. She had no morals at all. Kong Mingming, however, had forgotten that Murong Jun had slept with him back then. She was only interested in his backer. For this kind of woman, Qin Feng was not a match for her. For a woman like her body was just a capital. As long as the opportunity was right, she could use it for a trade at any time. Pinyang, I'm very pleased that you were willing to introduce Lady Murong to me this time. I'll remember that you've done a great job. Work hard in the future. I have high hopes for you. Si Hai Xiao praised Zhong Pinliang as he enjoyed Murong Jun's flirtatious behavior. This time, Kong Mingming was even more depressed. It seemed like Si Hai Xiao favored Zhong Pinliang even more, and he himself had to settle for second place. As for Murong Jun, there was even less of a chance for him to compete. Accompanying Ning Shuifei and Shangwan Laner to play around, Lin Yi, the island beauty's personal expert, was in a much better mood than Kong Mingming. However, he didn't completely forget about his business during the play. He brought the two girls to the Hong Merchant Association again. This time, without Si Hai Xiao's obstruction, Lin Yi successfully bought most of the supplementary materials listed by King of Junk. He even got one of the two rare materials that King of Junk mentioned that required luck. However, the last one was nowhere to be found. The appearance, growing mushroom, was a spiritual medicine that looked very similar to Ganoderma. At the same time, it was a rare material for forging weapons. According to King of Junk, the 5 elements during forging were different from the normal 5 elements. The process of forging weapons was the reverse of the 5 elements. Therefore, the key to perfectly harmonizing the attributes of the materials depended on the appearance growing mushroom. However, the appearance growing mushroom was as rare as the heart-devouring exquisite grass. More importantly, once it was harvested, it had a very short lifespan and would easily wither and become useless. Therefore, unless a special reservation was made, even a large merchant association like the Hong Merchant Association wouldn't be able to stock it. It was the same for other merchant associations. Fortunately, Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. After making a reservation at the Hong Merchant Association, he specifically went to find Chun Heihu and asked him to help him buy it. It was only then that Ning Shuifei finally realized what was going on. She asked doubtfully, Lin Yi, so you're not a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association? Of course not. The newcomers in the Welcome Pavilion don't work part-time outside. As for the reason why I went to the northernmost island with Hong Zhong last time, it was only because I had a good relationship with him. I never said I was a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association. Lin Yi shrugged. Then why did you ask me to ask Hong Zhong for elixirs last time? I thought you were from the Hong Merchant Association. Ning Shuifei pouted. Lin Yi smiled and said, Actually, I refined those elixirs myself. However, it was true that he was from the Hong Merchant Association. Is this for real? So many elixirs were refined by you? Ning Shuifei's eyes widened. At that time, the Hong Merchant Association was pushed aside by a few other merchant associations. They couldn't bring out any decent items for auction, so I helped Hong Zhong. That's how I got those elixirs. Lin explained lightly. Chapter 4071. At this time, Shangwan Laner interrupted and said, So, the highest grade elixir that you gave me as a birthday gift last time was also refined by you, junior brother? Yes. Linny nodded and admitted. There is no need to hide this kind of thing from the two of them. You can even refine the highest grade elixir so easily. I didn't expect that you, Lin Yi, are such a powerful alchemist. Ning Shuifei's face was full of admiration. She suddenly said, By the way, I heard that there's a kind of elixir that can directly improve one's strength. It's called the Foundation Establishment Elixir. You can directly upgrade after eating it, unlike the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Elixir, which can only be used to break through the barrier. I wonder if you can refine it? You also know about the Foundation Establishment Elixir? Lin, he was slightly surprised. Looking at the Heaven Stage Island, the Foundation Establishment Elixir was an extremely rare and precious elixir. Even in a big chamber of commerce, like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it was rare. That's right. Ning Xuefei proudly raised her neck. This is a good friend of mine told me about it. I can try, but I can't guarantee that I will succeed. Lenny did not make any promises. That's great. Ning Xuefei suddenly became excited and said, I have collected a lot of materials for refining the Foundation Establishment Elixir. Let's refine it together. Then, after refining, the three of us will divide it. But I want 2 portions, and I have to bring one for my good friend. Okay, no problem. Lin nodded and agreed. Since Hong Zhong went to Middle Island, he lost a reliable channel to purchase the heart-devouring exquisite grass. In the future, if he wanted to refine more Foundation Establishment Elixir, he could only wait for the news from Chun Heihu. He was a little worried about this recently. He did not expect that Ning Xuefei would actually help him in his time of need. But, according to Lin Yi's estimations, even with Ning Xuefei's high status as the daughter of the West Island's master, she wouldn't be able to collect too many ingredients in private. After all, the heart-devourer exquisite grass was extremely rare, and it wasn't something that could be collected easily. However, after a few days, Ning Xuefei sent someone to deliver a large basket full of materials. This really shocked Lin. After a rough estimation, there were actually at least 10 sets of materials inside. Even with Lin Yi's mental fortitude, he was still shocked by this scene for a long time. Comparisons were odious. Lin Yi couldn't help but marvel. How did Ning Xuefei collect all these? This time, Lin Yi could not help but feel a surge of emotions. After some preparation, he was about to start refining the pill. However, the 2 ladies, Ning Xuefei and Shangwan Laner, came to him at this time and said in unison, We want to watch you concoct pills. We want to protect you. Lin, he shook his head and sighed. No, she also came to the Heaven Stage Island, but she was not transmitted to the North Island. I don't know which island and which sect she is in now. Since the last time he accidentally met Tian Chan on the extreme North Island, Lin, he had been worried about this problem. Even Tian Chan had encountered such a big trouble. With Han Jingjing's strength, it should be more difficult for her to adapt to the complicated environment of the Heaven Stage Island than Tian Chan. He didn't know how she was now. Hey, Fei Fei can help you. She is the real princess of the West Island. She may not know other places, but if your girlfriend happens to be in the West Island, she will be able to find it. Fei Fei, am I right? Shanghai Laner suggested. When Lin Yi heard this, he suddenly had hope. He turned his head and looked at Ning Xuefei expectantly. Han Jingjing was a woman. According to the situation that most of the female cultivators on the Heaven Stage Island were concentrated in the West Island, the possibility of her being transmitted to the West Island was at least more than 60%. Okay, I'll ask someone when I go back. Ning Xuefei promised vaguely. She did not directly tell them about Han Jingjing's current situation. She wanted to give them a big surprise. Chapter 4072. The whereabouts of Han Jingjing, Rock Candy, Sydney, Tian Chan, Song Lingray, Wang Xinyan, and the others were a big concern for him. Even if he couldn't meet them for the time being, if he could know their whereabouts and current situation, he could be relieved. As for the others, Lin Yi originally wanted to let Ning Xuefei inquire about them, but then he thought it was not good to inquire so much, and Ning Xuefei must have sent someone to inquire about them. It would not be good if they were targeted by someone with ulterior motives. Why are you calling me Miss Ning again? Didn't I say that I am the same as Little Lon? You should call me Little Senior Sister Fei Fei. Ning Xuefei said angrily. Well, okay, Little Senior Sister Fei Fei. Lin Yi quickly surrendered. That's more like it, Ning Xuefei stuck out her tongue proudly. Back to business, Lin Yi immediately began to refine the Foundation Establishment pill. To be on the safe side, he did not put all 10 sets of materials in it, but divided them into 2 batches. The Divine Armament Cauldron also had a maximum tolerance limit. With the previous experience of alchemy, Lin he had long been familiar with this. There was no unexpected situation in the process of alchemy this time. In addition to the time taken a little longer than usual, the only thing that surprised Lin he was the last out of the furnace. Although there were only 10 sets of materials, the 2 furnaces added up to a total of 14 foundation establishment pills, each of which was of the best quality. This result really shocked Lin he himself, not to mention Ning Xuefei and Shangwan Laner. At this moment, they looked at Lin he as if they were looking at a monster. Their watery eyes were full of admiration. Lin he was a little embarrassed by their gazes. He shrugged and said, "The main thing is that the materials are good, and the quality is rare. It's normal to have these more." Shangwan Laner had no concept of these things, but Ning Xuefei was imperceptibly influenced and had a good understanding of alchemy. When she heard this, she was surprised and said, "Normal." 2 furnaces refined a total of 14 best quality foundation establishment pills. Was this still considered normal? Lin Yi, you're too humble. Even the pill god Zhang Liju wouldn't be able to do that, right? Little senior sister Fei Fei is too kind. I'm just a newcomer. How can I be compared to Master Zhang? Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand. His current level of alchemy was all thanks to this cheap master of his that he had never met before. According to the agreement, the refined foundation building pills were divided among the 3 of them. Ning Xuefei took 6 pills, and 3 of them were for her good friend. Shanghai Laner took 3 and left the remaining 5 for Lin Yi. "I only need 3. You can have the other 2. Lin Yi refused. He knew that the 2 girls didn't like to train. If they wanted to increase their strength, they could only rely on elixirs. Taking 1 more foundation building pill would increase their strength, and it wasn't a bad thing for the 2 girls. After all, even if they had a strong background, there would always be times when they had to rely on themselves. Just like when Shanghai Laner was kidnapped. However, Shangwan Laner shook her head repeatedly and said, "I don't need so much. I don't need to be too strong. If I improve too quickly, I won't be able to protect myself. If I increase too fast, Grandpa will suspect me. I don't want him to know about our secret." Ning Xuefei said matter-of-factly, "You made these. It's all your work to be able to produce so many foundation-building pills. The extra 2 should have been yours." Although she said that, Lin Yi still felt guilty and said, "Otherwise, give these 2 to your friend. Just give these 2 to your friend. If I'm not wrong, these elixir ingredients were prepared by him, right?" This was not difficult to infer. Ning Xuefei was a blacksmith, not an alchemist. Normally, even if she knew about the existence of foundation-building pills, she wouldn't specially prepare so many foundation-building pills. This was not something that could be bought casually. She definitely doesn't want it. I'll make the decision for her and give it to you. Don't be so wishy-washy and pushy. Ning Xuefei decided. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel strange. Foundation-building pills were rare elixirs that could only be found by luck. How good was the relationship between Ning Xuefei and her friend for her to make the decision for him? But thinking about it, they should be super close friends who were like sisters. Since it had come to this, Lin Yi couldn't refuse anymore. He could only choose to accept it. He owed her a favor and could only think of a way to make it up to her in the future. At this time, Shanghai Laner suddenly suggested excitedly, "Since it has been distributed, then let's take it together now. This is a good idea. Let's refine elixirs together and break through together." Ning Xuefei raised both of her hands in agreement. Foundation-building pills didn't have any side effects. It didn't matter where it was taken. Lin Yi didn't need to dampen their spirits on this kind of thing. So he nodded and said, "Okay, I have no problem." The 3 of them immediately began to adjust their state. They took the newly refined foundation-building pills one after another and focused on breaking through to a higher realm. Every peak of the foundation-building realm was a threshold that was extremely difficult to cross. Last time on the extreme North Island, Lin didn't need the help of elixirs and directly broke through to the middle stage of the foundation building realm. But if he wanted to break through to the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm now, the difficulty increased not by 1 or 2 times, but by 10 times, 20 times, or even 30 times. However, for this attempt to break through, he was still full of confidence, because he now had a total of 5 foundation building pills in his hands. Looking at the whole Heaven Stage Island, even a young master with a deep background didn't have such an exaggerated capital. In a spurt of energy, he took 4 foundation building pills in succession, leaving only the last one as a reserve. This attempt to break through could be said to be a real big deal for Lin. Time passed slowly, and when Lin opened his eyes again, a whole day and night had passed. In his eyes, a frightening light flashed and disappeared, and his vigorous and majestic aura was slowly withdrawn. In just a day, Lin gave people the feeling that he had been reborn. Previously, when he was at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation building realm, Lin Yi's aura was strong and sharp, like a sharp sword being unsheathed. Now his aura had become more vigorous and majestic, but it was no longer so aggressive. It had become a lot more reserved and deep, like a sharp sword being sheathed. Even if there was only a trace of sharpness left, it was still enough to shock people. The feeling of the peak of the late stage of the foundation building realm is not bad. Lin slowly exhaled with satisfaction. Chapter 4073. This kind of thing, if spread out, could shock a large number of people's jaws. No matter how high the talent potential was, even with the help of the best elixirs, the cultivation road could only go up step by step. Upgrading 2 levels in a row was not unique, but it was also rare in the world. Lin Yi's heaven-defying performance, which no one knew about, could be summed up. Other than the powerful effects of the 4 supreme grade foundation building pills, the most important factor was his hard work in his daily training. Only by accumulating strength could one become a true king. Feeling the almost qualitative change of the full true chi around him, Lin even couldn't help but feel that with his current strength, if he faced a master like Zhang Tianjia again, he should have the strength to fight head-on. Zhang Tianjia was a master of Gold Core stage. Even if he was only in the early stage of Gold Core, he was completely superior to all the masters of Foundation Establishment stage. Foundation Establishment and Gold Core were 2 completely different concepts. According to the common understanding of the world, even the strongest Foundation Establishment peak, it was impossible to be a direct opponent of Gold Core stage, even if this person was an alchemist. Between the Heaven Stage peak and the early stage of Foundation Establishment, there might be a gap in strength. After all, from Heaven Stage to Foundation Establishment, there was a threshold of change. If one was not adapted, it was possible to be defeated. But Gold Core was different. However, Lin didn't have such a feeling at all. If he hadn't fought with a master of Gold Core stage, it would have been fine. But now he really felt that, with his current strength, he would not lose to Zhang Tianjia in a head-on battle. In front of the Foundation Establishment stage, whether Gold Core stage was really an invincible legend, Lin had a strong hunch that maybe he would be able to personally verify it soon. After Lin, Shangwan Laner and Ning Shuifei also completed their breakthroughs. Shanghai Laner had broken through to the middle stage of Foundation Establishment long ago with the help of Foundation Building Pill and the personal guidance of Shanghai Tianhua. Now, she was promoted again. She became a master of the peak middle stage of Foundation Establishment. As for Ning Shuifei, although the Princess of West Island also doesn't like to cultivate, her strength progress is no less than that of Shangwan Laner. Now, she is also at the peak of the middle stage of Foundation Establishment. From refining pills to breaking through, the 3 of them stayed in the room for an entire day and night, not taking a single step out of the room. When they finally opened the door and walked out, the 5 core disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion, who were ordered to protect the 2 young ladies, looked at Lin with a different expression. 1 against 2. And 2 princesses at that. This brat was too awesome to be able to pick up girls to this extent. Even if he didn't do anything else in this life, his future would still be limitless. Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuifei didn't notice the strange look in everyone's eyes. Only Lin Yi grinned awkwardly. He seemed to have done something that made these people's imagination run wild. As his strength increased, in Lin Yi's eyes, the originally unfathomable masters of Gold Core Stage are no longer so unreachable. These masters also have emotions, and they also have a burning heart for gossip. He can only hope that they don't spread this matter. Otherwise, Lin Yi will be pushed to the teeth of the storm again. With nothing to do, after Lin Yi went out, he took the two girls to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, wanting to see the news of the life mushroom. However, as soon as he walked through the door of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the familiar figure inside made Lin Yi's footsteps stop, and then he said happily, "Elder Hong, what did you come back?" Seeing Lin Yi, Hong Zhong also looked happy. He quickly greeted him and looked him up and down. He said in amazement, "Young hero Lin, it's been a long time. You have been reborn again. This speed of improvement of your strength has truly broadened this old man's horizons. Congratulations." "Grandpa Hong, you only saw Junior Brother, but didn't you see us?" Shanghai Laner came up behind him and said with a smile, "Haha, little honor. No matter who I miss, I can't miss you, little girl," Hong Zhong said with a smile. Then he turned to look at Ning Shuifei and saluted. "You must be Miss Ning of West Island. I've heard a lot about you. Come on, please come upstairs. Just call me Fei Fei, Grandpa Hong," Ning Shuifei said with a sweet smile. After inviting the three of them to the private room upstairs, Hong Zhong immediately asked people to set up a banquet. After exchanging greetings and catching up with each other, he personally apologized to Ning Shuifei and Shanghai Laner on behalf of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. But the two women didn't care about it at all. Even if they held a grudge, they would settle it with Si Haixiao, not with the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Then, Hong Zhong told Lin Yi the reason why he came back to the North Island this time. "To tell you the truth, I came back to the North Island on my own initiative. Si Haixiao made such a big scandal, so I had to come back to clean up the mess. Now I'm a vice president and also the manager of the North Island branch." Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he wondered, "Elder Hong, with your connections in the North Island, you are indeed the best candidate to clean up the mess, but why does it sound like a demotion to be the manager of the branch?" Normally, if Hong Zhong really came here to clean up the mess, he only needed to say a few good words, and he didn't need to be the manager of the branch at all. Chapter 4074. Cheers! Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuifei answered cheerfully. Lin Yi also raised his glass and put Hong Zhong's matter aside for the time being. Hong Zhong was his ally. The better Hong Zhong did, the more help he would be to him in the future. But for now, even Hong Zhong himself didn't know how to get out of the predicament. Lin Yi was only an honorary vice president and half an outsider to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so he couldn't help much at the moment. There was still plenty of time. However, it wasn't a bad thing for Lin Yi that Hong Zhong came back to the North Island now. He was a reliable person, and it would be much easier for him to get some rare treasures from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. After the meal, Lin Yi asked, "Mr. Hong, I need a spiritual medicine called Appearance Mushroom. I've booked it here before. Do you have any news?" "Young Master Lin, I'll ask someone to check it out." After a while, Hong Zhong, who got the report, shook his head and said, "There's no news yet. I've used Appearance Mushroom before, so I know a little about it. It's not only rare, but it will wither quickly after being picked. So, very few trial takers will go to collect Appearance Mushroom. Even if they book it in advance, it's hard to get it in a short time." "I see. Then we can only wait." Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Young Master Lin, don't worry. I'll ask someone to increase the reward. It won't take long." Hong Zhong comforted him with a smile. Those who take the task to collect spiritual medicine are gone for many days, so it's normal to have no news for a while. Few people will go there just for Appearance Mushroom, because it's a waste of energy and cost, and it can't be sold at a high price. But with a high reward, there must be brave people As long as I raise the reward, someone will be interested. At least when they go to collect medicine, they'll pay more attention to appearance mushroom, and the probability of finding it will be higher. Hearing this, Lin Yi suddenly had a thought. He said, "Where exactly are the people that old Hong mentioned gathering herbs? Could it be the back mountains of the 3 pavilions? Can I go there personally?" Lin Yi didn't know how long the King of Junk could drag on, but it was better to get these supplementary materials as soon as possible. Rather than relying on others, it was better to rely on oneself. This had always been Lin Yi's style. "Oh, this old man has forgotten. Young hero Lin, although you're still a newcomer to the welcoming pavilion, in terms of strength, you are much stronger than me." He has long surpassed most of the disciples of the 3 pavilions. When Hong Zhong heard this, he was stunned for a moment. Then he reacted and explained, "The place to pick the herbs is not in the back mountain. That is the private territory of the 3 great pavilions. Only disciples of the 3 great pavilions with permission can enter. Normally, it is not open to the public. Furthermore, many rare herbs and resources, even if they are found, will be handed over to the 3 great pavilions and are not allowed to flow out." Lin Yi thought it made sense. Just like the newcomer's trial, the herbs collected in the process would eventually be handed over to the back mountain hall. They were not allowed to take them out privately. If it is not the back mountain, then where is it? Lin Yi continued to ask. The back mountain is rich in resources. But the back mountain is not the only place in the North Island where you can collect herbs. You can go to other places. However, young hero Lin, if you really want to go in person, you need to register an account in the North Island Cultivators Guild. Hong Zhong suggested. The North Island Cultivators Guild? It was the first time that Lin Yi had heard of this name since he came to the Heaven Stage Island for half a year. Hong Zhong nodded and said, "Yes, this is a guild that theoretically covers all the cultivators in the North Island. With the 3 pavilions as the leaders, other forces and grassroots rogue cultivators will also register and gather in the North Island Cultivators Guild. It will issue all kinds of reward trial tasks every day. Only the cultivators who have registered with it can accept the task and get the reward." "Oh, so I can also go?" Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Of course, the disciples of the 3 pavilions are the mainstream group there. Young hero Lin, you must know that the newcomers of the Welcome Pavilion will become the official outer disciples of the 3 pavilions after 1 year. Unless they become the core disciples of the Gold Core stage or apprentice to the elders of the 3 pavilions, the cultivation resources are still very limited. If they want to improve quickly, they have to rely on themselves and constantly do trial tasks to get paid. Hong Zhong explained in detail. "But I heard people say that the 3 pavilions give out missions themselves?" Lin, he was confused. "That's right, but the missions issued by the 3 pavilions are generally high-risk and high-reward missions. Although they're specially prepared for the disciples of the 3 pavilions, ordinary outer disciples can't do them if they're not strong enough. In contrast, the missions issued by the Cultivators Guild in the North Island every day are much easier. It's a way for most of the outer disciples of the 3 pavilions to increase their experience and also a shortcut to earn spiritual jades. For example, young Master Lin, the heart-devouring exquisite grass you asked me to buy was obtained from the bounty mission over there," Hong Zhong revealed. Lin Yi's interest was piqued. He asked eagerly, "Elder Hong, are there any requirements for registering at the Cultivators Guild?" "There are no thresholds. As long as your strength is above the foundation establishment stage, it's okay. Your Welcome Pavilion generally doesn't encourage newcomers to go there to take trial tasks, so they won't tell you at all. But with your strength, it's a different story." Hong Zhong smiled lightly. "Okay, then I'll try." Lin Yi immediately made up his mind. Before his voice died away, Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuifei suddenly said in unison, "Great, we want to go with you." Lin Yi's face suddenly darkened, but before he could object, Hong Zhong had already spoken for him. "No, that place is extremely dangerous. If you two go, not only will you not be able to help young Master Lin, but you will also get into trouble. It's only been a few days. have you forgotten Si Hai Shao? Grandpa Hong, we may not necessarily meet that old bastard. Shanghai Laner said weakly. Hong Zhong shook his head helplessly. What I mean is there are more than one or two scumbags like him in the cultivation world. Beautiful female cultivators like you two, no matter where you go, you'll be the focus of attention, and it's easy to get into trouble. The trial site is completely out of the control of the 3 pavilions and the West Island. If anything happens, it's too late to save you. Chapter 4075. Young Master Lin, you have to be careful. It's a mess over there, and it's not like the 3 pavilions where there are all kinds of restrictions. It's not uncommon for people to kill each other without saying a word. Even if your strength is good now, you have to be careful. Hong Zhong specially reminded him. Don't worry, Elder Hong. I understand. Lenny nodded. In order to get the mutual life mushroom as soon as possible, he had to go this time. If he delayed it for too long, God knew if he would fail this time. And during this time, Lin Yi also clearly felt that his life in Welcome Pavilion was a bit too comfortable. After Su Lingchong disappeared, the remaining people like Kong Ming Ming and Meng Tong were no longer his opponents. They didn't pose any challenge to him. This kind of environment was actually not a good thing for cultivation. Even if it was to improve his strength, he had to go out to gain experience and look for further opportunities. This time, it was not only to find a mutual life mushroom, but also he had another more important purpose, which was to look for opportunities to break through to the peak of Foundation Establishment Realm, so that he could get ready to break through to the Elixir Realm as soon as possible. Actually, the only thing I'm a little worried about now is how to explain to Welcome Pavilion. Lenny frowned and said, this time, he would definitely be out for a long time. If he didn't have a suitable reason, Welcome Pavilion might make trouble. After all, he was now nominally the reception deacon of West Island. If he left Ning Shuafei behind and went to do a task, it would be a serious dereliction of duty. It's okay, junior brother, just go. Fei Fei and I can help you. Just say that you want to buy things for us. Hee hee. Shangguan Laner giggled. Buy things? What kind of weird reason was that? Linny nodded with a bitter smile. Since Shanghai Laner had already said so, even if others wanted to take the opportunity to cause trouble, they couldn't refute. Elder Hong, do you know where the mutual life mushroom can be found? Linny asked. Hukai Mount Tianwu. This is the place with the highest probability of finding the life phase mushroom. The life appearance mushrooms usually grow in cold and damp places with no light. So, young hero Lin, after you get there, you can try your luck at a few of the streams. You should be able to reap some rewards. Hong Zhong suggested to Lin, based on the information he knew. Phew, I remember Mount Tianwu. However, where is this mountain located? Linny asked. This mountain is also considered a famous mountain. Its fame is no less than the back mountain of the 3 great pavilions. Its location is between the North Island and the Middle Island. Hong Zhong said with a smile. Huh, between North Island and Central Island? Could it be that the 2 islands are connected? He was shocked. Not bad. Young hero Lin, you can't be thinking that the North Island and the Middle Island are separated by the sea, right? Hong Zhong asked curiously. Yes. He scratched his head awkwardly. Ever since he came to Heaven Stage Island, he had always heard people talking about the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage. Moreover, it was very difficult to travel between the North Island and the Middle Island. Naturally, he thought that the 5 main islands of Heaven Stage were isolated from each other. Hong Zhong couldn't help but smile and said, actually, according to young hero Lin's understanding, it's not wrong. Although the North Island and the Middle Island are connected by a long and narrow mountain range, just like the back mountain of the 3 great pavilions, this mountain range is occupied by all kinds of powerful spirit beasts. Moreover, it is often affected by natural disasters, such as hurricanes. The danger level was much higher than the depths of the back mountain. Therefore, even powerful cultivators would rarely cross the 2 islands on foot. If they travel between the 2 islands, they usually use flying spirit beasts or treasured ships. Treasured ships? He was slightly stunned. Another new thing that he had never heard of: there are sea beasts wreaking havoc in the sea. Coupled with the threat of natural disasters, it's even more dangerous than traveling by land. No matter how good the sailing technology is, it's impossible for ordinary ships to travel between the two islands. Only treasured ships can do it. Hong Zhong paused and explained. Treasured ships are left behind by ancient craftsmen. Not only is the body of the ship far stronger and more reliable than ordinary ships, the key point is that there is a powerful formation on the ship that can resist super strong attacks and natural disasters. Moreover, it has a confusing effect on most sea beasts. Even if it passes over their heads, it won't be discovered. That's really a wonderful work of art. He was amazed. Unfortunately, the Tao of equipment forging has declined for many years now, and it's difficult to even see an ordinary equipment forging master, let alone a grandmaster equipment forging master. The extraordinary ancient art of forging treasured ships has been lost since a long time ago, and there's one less treasured ship that's destroyed. Now, it has already become a symbol to measure the strength of the various merchant groups, and the stronger the merchant group, the more treasured ships under its command. Hong Zhong sighed with emotion. Oh, what do you mean by that? He couldn't help but feel strange. Even if the number of treasured ships was rare, it didn't have to be directly related to the strength of the merchant association. Every merchant association had its own strengths. For example, the Five Elements Commerce under the Middle Island Pill Hall had always been in the business of elixirs and didn't dabble in other businesses, but it was still recognized as the #1 merchant association. Young hero Lin, you don't know that the transportation of goods between the Heaven Stage islands usually goes by water, and the only way to do that is to rely on treasured ships. So, treasured ships determine the most important transportation capacity of the merchant association. It's the lifeline that the big merchant associations rely on to survive. Hong Zhong said seriously, it's not that we can't take the other routes, but the flying spirit beasts in the sky can only carry too little goods each time. The transportation capacity is not on the same level as that of treasured ships. I see. He finally understood. As for the mountain range, of course, it's not that we can't take it, but there are too many uncertain factors, and the risk is too high. It's hard to control. Moreover, the mountain road is rugged. Unless we take it often or have some special needs, the price is too high. Normally, no one is willing to try it, Hong Zhong said. Indeed, big merchant associations prioritize stability and reliability. The land route is so risky. If we pin our hopes on it, it'll ruin our reputation if there's an accident that leads to a shortage of goods. He nodded in agreement. Last time, the Hong Merchant Association was jointly targeted by several other merchant associations. In fact, it was because they used the shortage of goods to make a fuss. At the level of a top merchant association, their advance and retreat depended on the market's reputation. If they were careless, they might lose everything. That's right. With young hero Lin's comprehension and insight, it'll be a loss if you don't do business. Hong Zhong chuckled and then said, I brought this up because I want to tell you that I have friends in the Middle Island. If young hero Lin accidentally goes to the Middle Island, you can look for Assistant Manager Kai of the Five Elements Commerce under the Middle Island Pill Hall. Chapter 4076. Even if Five Elements Commerce didn't join hands with other chambers of commerce last time, it was obvious that they were competing with each other. The top management of the two chambers of commerce were just friendly on the surface, but it was hard to say that they were friends. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. This is a private friendship. When I was young, I participated in a few trial missions with him. He's a reliable person. Young hero Lin, if you have any problems, you can go to him. I'm just giving you a heads up. Young hero Lin, it's unlikely that you'll go to Middle Island for the time being, so you might not need him, Hong Zhong said with a smile. Whether I need to use him or not, I'll keep your kindness in mind. He nodded gratefully. Coming out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, He sent Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefe back to Hualan residence. He went back to the welcoming pavilion to inform senior brother Ku and the others, and then went to the king of Junk's secret casting base. He didn't know how long he would be gone this time, so he should at least inform him in advance. However, as soon as he walked into the cave, He was shocked by the king of Junk's miserable appearance. He was covered with bruises all over his body, and the white gauze was still stained with blood. "Brother Wong, what's wrong with you?" He asked quickly. The king of Junk smiled indifferently and waved his hand. "I'm fine. I was accidentally sneaked in 2 days ago. It's okay to get some minor injuries. I'm used to it." Was it Kong Ming Ming and his men? He guessed correctly. The king of Junk had protected this secret base very well, and no one had ever known about it for so many years. It was only because he was careless last time and was followed by Kong Ming Ming and his men that people knew about this secret casting base. "I'm really fine. When I used to cast weapons, I was often burned by fire and exploded many times. But that Kong Ming Ming you mentioned, his moves are a bit strange. I've never seen anyone use alchemy fire as a fighting move. It's quite powerful, but it's okay. I'll be fine after a few days of rest." The king of Junk laughed carelessly. "That move should have been a pill flame bomb. It's all my fault for causing you to be injured. I'm truly sorry," He said apologetically. He had been playing around with Laner and Ning Shuefe these days and didn't pay attention to the king of Rags. He didn't expect that such a thing would happen. He was too careless. After saying that, He went behind the tattered king and placed his palm on his back, using his mental cultivation method to heal him. "Brother Lin, what are you doing?" Feeling the warm, genuine chi from Lin Yi's palm, the king of Rags was shocked. While feeling comfortable, he found that the wounds all over his body began to itch, which was a sign of self-healing. After a while, Yi slowly withdrew his true chi and said, "Brother Wong, how do you feel now?" It was much better than before. My wounds don't hurt at all." "Brother Lin, what kind of technique is this? It's too amazing." The tattered king stretched his arms and legs and said in surprise, based on his past experience, this kind of injury would hurt for at least another month. He didn't expect it to be completely healed by Lin Yi's treatment. It was unbelievable. Yi chuckled and said, "It's just a small trick. Brother Wong, if you get injured again in the future, just let me know. It's just a small injury." That's good. There's no weapon that doesn't get injured. I won't be polite to you in the future." The king of Rags scratched his head and laughed. "Right. I came here this time to tell you, Brother Wong, that I'm going out to look for the life-growing mushroom. As for when I'll be back, I can't say for sure. So, I'll have to trouble you to keep an eye on this place, Brother Wong," Yi said. "Yes, the life-growing mushroom is hard to find. I'll have to trouble you to make a trip." The king of Rags nodded and then suddenly said, "By the way, Brother Lin, are you going to hide your identity this time?" "Of course. The North Island Cultivators Guild is a complicated place. I can't go there as a newcomer in the Welcome Pavilion. It'll be too eye-catching." He nodded. "In that case, Brother Lin, you can't use your original 1,000 silk mask anymore. After all, many people know about it. Even if you wear it, it's hard to guarantee that it won't be discovered. Let me modify it for you," King of Junk suggested. "Modify the 1,000 silk mask?" He was a little stunned. He remembered that the king of Rags mentioned that he could also make this kind of mask. That's right. Although it takes a lot of effort to make this thing, it's easy to modify it and change its appearance. The king of Rags took Yi's 1,000 silk mask and asked casually, "Brother Lin, what do you want to look like?" He thought about it. "If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, Wong Bro, to make me look like a rugged warrior." In Jianghu, in addition to powerful strength, appearance was also a very useful weapon. For example, a martial artist with a rough appearance. Because of the first impression, people would think that he was not intelligent and simple-minded, so he was more likely to be trusted. Of course, it was also easier for people with ulterior motives to look down on him, so he could pretend to be weak to eat the tiger. In a short while, the 1,000 silk mask in the hands of the king of Rags had completely changed into a new look. Just as Linny requested, it looked rough and domineering. From a distance, it looked like a standard martial artist. But if you look closely, you would find that it was rare to see a martial artist. Brother Wong, your craftsmanship is really amazing. I think it's more than enough to be a professional painter. Lin Yi praised from the bottom of his heart. With a few simple sketches, he could make such a full and vivid appearance. It was really a magic skill. The king of junk chuckled proudly and said, as a blacksmith, the key to designing a casting plan lies in the drawing. The accuracy of the drawing directly determines the success rate. Don't think that I've never forged anything decent before, but my basic skills aren't bad at all. Besides, I like drawing for fun when I have nothing to do. I made a fool out of myself, Brother Lin. Lin Yi gave the guy a thumbs up. Putting everything else aside, the king of garbage's talent in craftsmanship alone was a rare prodigy. The next day, Lin Yi set out early in the morning. He put on the brand new 1000 silk mask and went to the Cultivators Guild in the north according to Hong Zhong's guidance. It was not far from the 3 pavilions. It was less than 5 kilometers away from the 3 pavilions. Although it was still early, the lobby of the Cultivators Guild was already full of people. Chapter 4077. At a glance, more than 50% of the people in the crowd were dressed like disciples of the 3 pavilions. Most of them were outer sect disciples. Apart from them, there were some grassroots itinerant cultivators from the cultivator tribes. There were also some merchants' own trial teams. For a large chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, if they lacked something, they would usually offer a reward to buy it. However, this method was not suitable for small merchants. They usually recruited some people to form a trial team. In addition to collecting for themselves, they could also earn spiritual jades through reward tasks. It was a small cost, and they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. However, this method had a lot of uncertainty, and the supply was often not enough. Therefore, they were destined to be small chambers of commerce. Passing through the noisy hall that was like a market, Lin Yi went straight to a room on the side. There was a sign here that indicated it was a special registration point. In fact, if Lin Yi came here specifically for the Mutual Life mushroom, he did not have to come to the North Island Cultivators Guild. He could find a way to go directly to Mount Hutsai Tianwu. However, Lin Yi finally decided to listen to Hong Zhong's advice and register here. Because as long as he accepted a task here, he could directly get the corresponding information from the Cultivators Guild, including the route map, and all kinds of things to pay attention to. It could save him a lot of tedious preparation work, which was what Lin Yi really needed. The registration process was not complicated. After Lin Yi showed his cultivation of the foundation building stage, he quickly passed the test and got a membership card of the Cultivators Guild. Of course, it was not free. It cost 100 spiritual jades. Just like the spiritual jade card, after instilling the user's signature true chi, he could rely on a special microformation to identify and verify his identity. It was also a special technological product on the Heaven Stage Island. Its reliability and security were much better than the similar products on Earth. 100 spiritual jades was not expensive. This membership card was not only the identity symbol for Lin Yi to join the Cultivators Guild of the North Island, but also the reward for completing tasks in the future. Like the spiritual jade card, it could be used at the major chambers of commerce under the jurisdiction of the Merchant Union. And with Lin Yi's current appearance, his name showed on the membership card was Ling Yi. After completing the membership, the next thing Lin Yi had to do was naturally to accept the mission. The North Island Cultivators Guild divided the tasks into 2 areas, one for the Golden Core stage and the other for the Foundation Establishment stage. Gold Core stage members had private rooms, and missions were all completed in the private rooms. However, many Gold Core stage missions were issued by the 3 Great Pavilions, and most of them were received by the disciples of the 3 Great Pavilions. Very few people would come here to receive missions, except for a few powerful rogue cultivators. As for the Foundation Establishment Stage mission area, it was the lobby that Lin Yi had just passed through. The situation was the complete opposite of the Gold Core stage. It was bustling with activity and overcrowded. All the tasks would be written on the task board and hung on the big blackboard in the middle. After the mission was completed, it would be canceled. Those that had been accepted but not yet completed would have a tick on the mission board, indicating that it was still in progress. However, other than the various bounty missions, Lin noticed that there was also a blackboard next to it. From top to bottom, it was filled with names. It was also the focus of everyone's discussion. List of North Island experts. Looking at the dark gold characters at the top, Lin couldn't help but be slightly surprised. This list was really big. The North Island Cultivators Guild claimed to include all the cultivators in the North Island. Could it be that those mysterious super experts were all on this list? Lin thought that if this was the case, then he really had to take a good look and even write it down carefully. At least when he had a conflict with others in the future, he would have a plan in mind. However, at the first glance full of expectations, Lin immediately rejected this possibility. The reason was very simple. Many of the high-level big shots of the three great pavilions did not appear on this list, and there was no Ramjia, not even the head of the sky-reaching pavilion, Shanghai Tianhua. If it was said that Shangwan Tianhua was not the #1 master of the North Island, that would not be surprising. But if it was said that Shangwan Tianhua could not even make it into this so-called North Island master ranking, that would be too ridiculous. Looking carefully at the description of the list next to it, Lin realized that the so-called North Island experts list was actually just a gimmick. Strictly speaking, this list could only be regarded as a list of task contribution points, not a list of strength. Moreover, this list was limited to those in the Foundation Establishment realm, and experts above the Elixir realm were not included in this list. In the North Island Cultivators Guild, every time you completed a bounty mission, in addition to the reward, you would also get a corresponding point called task contribution points. The more bounty missions you completed, the more points you had, and the higher your ranking was. If that's the case, then this ranking isn't completely worthless. Lin said thoughtfully as he rubbed his chin. Although it was ranked by task contribution points instead of a more intuitive assessment of strength, in the North Island Cultivators Guild, which mainly focused on bounty missions, the mission completion rate could reflect strength to a large extent. At least in the Foundation Establishment realm, it was relatively reliable. At this time, the staff of the Cultivators Guild updated the list. The first place was still the same name, but the string of contribution points behind it had skyrocketed. Wow, Senior Brother Su Zhaohe is so awesome. I haven't been here for only a few days, but the contribution points have increased so much again. It has exceeded 100,000. This is too exaggerated and too powerful. A person dressed as a disciple of the sky-reaching pavilion exclaimed, unable to hide the admiration and awe in his tone. Yes, the second place now only has more than 60,000. This gap is too big, and there is no suspense at all. In the entire history of the North Island Cultivators Guild, there are only a few who can surpass 100,000. The people around him also sighed. At this time, one of them boasted, "Well, you guys know, Senior Brother Su is a rare genius in the North Island in 1,000 years. He's not even 30, and he's already in the Foundation Establishment realm. I heard that Senior Brother Su is already preparing for core formation. If this continues, he will definitely become a legend like the Elixir God Zhang Liju. If he's so strong, then why is he still doing missions? Isn't it better to save all the energy he used to do missions and try to core formation as soon as possible?" Someone asked. Chapter 4078. If he's that powerful, then his future is limitless. Hearing the discussions and exclamations of the people around him, Lin only glanced at the names on the leaderboard and shook his head. None of this had much to do with him, and he wasn't interested in it either. Turning his head to look at the mission leaderboard, Lin began to search for missions related to Hutsai, Tianwu Mountain. Only by doing so would he be able to obtain the corresponding map and information from the guild. After searching back and forth between the densely packed mission boards, Lin finally found a mission that fit the requirements. Mission issuer is the Wealthy Guild. Mission location is Hutsai Tianwu Mountain and the surrounding mountains. Seeking to purchase 100 bitter fruit, 100 heartless phoenix eyebrows grass. Purchasing such a large amount of spiritual medicine was already considered a big mission in the mission area for the Foundation establishment stage. If it was someone else, it would be very difficult to complete the mission alone. However, Lin, he had the Skybolt pig. As long as he went to the right place, it would only take him a bit more time to collect the spiritual medicine, so it wasn't a problem. However, just as Lin, he was about to accept the mission, he saw a member of the guild put an eye-catching tick on the mission board. A mission that was hard to come by was snatched away just like that. Lin Yi's face immediately darkened. He could only curse his bad luck and helplessly turn around to continue searching in the mission area. At this time, he suddenly heard someone say, "Captain, Junior Lee Cabello isn't here today. He was called to do a temporary mission at the Blue Cloud Pavilion. We're currently lacking one person. Should we find someone else to join us?" The person called Captain was a masked woman. She nodded in agreement and said, "That's a good idea. This time, there are so many spiritual medicines in Hutsai Tianwu Mountain. Just the three of us won't be enough." Hearing this, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He walked to the side of these people and purposely muttered to himself, "It's already so late. Why isn't old Xiao here yet? I can't accept any missions by myself. I came here for nothing. This guy is really unreliable." As expected, when these people looked at each other just now, their gazes fell on Lin Yi. There was a sense of scrutiny in their gazes. Seeing that Lin Yi's appearance was rough and he was a typical martial artist, they immediately nodded in relief. The masked woman walked up to Lin Yi in 2 steps and said, "Fellow trial taker, I inadvertently overheard your words just now. Do you want to do the quest too?" When Lin Yi saw that she had taken the bait, he was overjoyed. He quickly nodded and said, "Yes, I originally discussed with my companion that we would go together, but this guy is always in trouble. It seems that he won't be able to come this time. He's having a headache." What a coincidence! Our team just so happened to receive a mission to gather spirit herbs at the Heaven Meridian Mountain, and we're also lacking a member. Would you like to join us? The masked woman immediately threw out an olive branch. "Join your team." Lin Yi pretended to hesitate for a moment, and then agreed, "That's good. Anyway, I have nothing to do by myself." That's what I was thinking. When he had been observing earlier, Lin Yi had already discovered that many people in the lobby did quests in groups. For example, the trial team in front of him was led by the leader. The others assisted, and they worked together to complete the quests. In comparison, the trial takers who did quests alone, although there were not many of them. After all, a high reward meant a high risk. The difficulty of the quests issued by the big chambers of commerce was not low. It was impossible for a person to complete them alone. At most, they could only complete some small, unpresentable quests. If one accepted a quest in a team, the contribution points after the quest was completed would belong to the team leader. As for the reward, it would be distributed among the team members. Every team had different ways of distributing the reward, some more, some less. For the weaker trial takers, joining a team was far more reliable than doing small quests alone. At least in terms of reward, it was far better than doing small quests alone. Seeing that Lin Yi readily agreed, the masked woman immediately became happy. "That's great. Let me introduce myself. I'm Huang Xiaodao, the leader of this trial team. My current strength is at the late stage of Foundation establishment." After a pause, Huang Xiaodao immediately introduced the 2 people beside her. These 2 are junior brother Chen Muzhuan and junior brother Tsong Zhima. They are both in the middle stage of Foundation establishment. "The 3 of us are disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion." So they were all from the same sect? Lin Yi secretly nodded, but he pretended to be bold on the surface. He cupped his hands and said to the 3 of them, "I'm Ling Yi. I'm a loose cultivator. Please take care of me." Under normal circumstances, when everyone introduced themselves, they would state their strength because this was the basic basis of cooperation. However, Lin Yi did not say it, and Huang Xiaodao and the other 2 did not pay much attention to it. They thought that Lin Yi's strength was not high and could not be compared to the three of them, so he was too embarrassed to say it. However, even if Lin Yi did not say it, they could at least be sure that this Ling Yi, whom they met for the first time, was definitely a foundation establishment expert. Otherwise, if he could not pass the test, he would not be able to become a member of the guild. In any case, this time, it was not a dangerous mission to deal with a powerful spirit beast. It was just to gather spiritual herbs. As long as they had a certain level of self-protection, it would not be a problem. Even if they were not strong, it was not bad to be a coolie. Lin Yi's participation would be very helpful to their team of three. The three of them exchanged greetings with Lin Yi for a while. Afterwards, they did not stay in the guild for long. They immediately left the guild under Huang Xiaodao's lead and prepared to set off. Holding the map and route provided by the guild, Lin Yi estimated his position and found that Hucai Tianwu Mountain was thousands of miles away. He could not help but ask doubtfully, Leader Xiaodao, that Hucai Tianwu Mountain is so far away. How are the four of us going to get there? Wouldn't it take a lot of time to walk there? Hearing this, the three of them smiled at each other and didn't reply. Huang Xiaodao walked to an empty space and whistled towards the sky. A moment later, a flying spirit beast whistled as it spiraled down and landed in front of the four of them. Seeing this, Lin Yi could not help but be surprised. In front of him was a large spirit bird with beautiful tail feathers. It had a gentle personality and was extremely fast. It was the best choice to become a flying spirit beast. If it was sold, it would probably be sold for a sky-high price. This Huang Xiaodao's wealth was not low. Even people like the Southern Sky Gate did not have their own flying spirit beast. However, Huang Xiaodao, as a disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, had one. It could be seen that it was not without reason that Chen Muzhuan and the others were willing to rely on her. Of course, there was another possibility. That was, this large spirit bird was bought by Huang Xiaodao for a large sum of money to make it convenient for her to do bounty quests. Chapter 4079. I see. Lin Yi nodded. It made sense. The butterfly queen that Murong Zhen subdued was also a flying spiritual beast, but it was not suitable for long-distance riding. Compared with other flying spiritual beasts commonly used by the three pavilions and the Chamber of Commerce, this spiritual bird was not small. It was not crowded even after 4 people got on it, and it was very stable after taking off. They could even meditate and cultivate. After the spiritual bird took off, the 4 of them had nothing to do, so they chatted with each other to kill time and get to know each other better. After all, Lin Yi was a newcomer. The more they knew each other, the more familiar they would be with each other. After chatting for a while, Lin Yi suddenly said, Captain Xiaodao, I have some doubts, but I don't know if I should ask. Of course, if it's not convenient, it's okay. I'm just curious. Oh, since we're in the same team, we should be honest with each other. Brother Ling Yi, if you have any questions, just tell me. I'll tell you everything I know, Huang Xiaodao said enthusiastically. Okay, then forgive me for being presumptuous. Captain Xiaodao, you just said that the 3 of you are disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion, but as far as I know, the 3 pavilions don't accept female disciples. Don't all female cultivators go to the West Island? Also, why does Captain Xiaodao need to cover her face? Lin Yi asked curiously. In the Welcome Pavilion for more than half a year, except for Murong Zhen, he had never heard that there were female disciples in Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for why the other party covered her face, he had some guesses. This woman was either extremely beautiful like a fairy or extremely ugly. Anyway, no matter which one it was, it should be easy to get into trouble. Otherwise, if it was just an ordinary beauty, there was no need to cover her face deliberately. It was easy to arouse people's imagination and attract attention. This, Huang Xiaodao was slightly stunned. She didn't want to hide it, but she didn't know what to say at the moment. At this time, Song Zhima immediately explained for her enthusiastically. Brother Ling Yi, you may not know this, but Captain Xiaodao used to be an excellent disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion. She came from the same cultivator tribe as the famous Su Zhaoa. Because of her outstanding strength and talent, she was valued by the higher-ups of Soaring Sky Pavilion. In addition, Su Zhaohe, a rare genius disciple, also said good things about her. So Captain Xiaodao made an exception and stayed behind instead of being sent to West Island. Soaring Sky Pavilion's disciple? Didn't Captain Xiaodao just say that you're all disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion? Lin Yi asked in astonishment. Huang Xiaotao's eyes dimmed, but she didn't say anything. Instead, Song Jima continued to speak on her behalf. If that incident hadn't happened, Captain Xiaodao would still be a disciple of the Soaring Pavilion with a bright future ahead of her. She wouldn't have been forced to come to our Blue Cloud Pavilion. Although that's how we got to know Captain Xiaodao. Every time I think about that incident, I feel indignant on her behalf. That matter? Lin Yi frowned slightly. He had been rushed from the Soaring Pavilion to the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Why did this experience sound a little similar to Murongzhan's? Brother Ling, you should have heard people talking about how talented Su Zhaohe is, right? Actually, this guy looks dignified, but he's a hypocrite. Song Jima gnashed his teeth in indignation and said, not long after entering the Soaring Pavilion, he forced Captain Xiaodao to become his cultivation partner. Originally, everyone loves beauty. This isn't a big deal, but this bastard is unscrupulous in order to achieve his goal. In the end, Captain Xiaodao had no choice but to use her head to hit the wolf spikes. Only after she disfigured herself did that shameless bastard give up. After that, Captain Xiaodao was kicked out of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and entered our Clear Cloud Pavilion. Now that I look at it, I thought he was being kind back then, putting in a good word for Captain Xiaodao to enter the Soaring Pavilion. He was simply a wolf with ulterior motives. If that's the case, then that Su Zhaohe is really a scumbag with a human face. Lin Yi finally understood why Huang Xiaodao had purposely covered her face, and he secretly felt pity for her. Thinking back, even a top-notch young master like Su Lingqiong could do such a despicable act like raping Shanghai Laner. He could be said to be the same kind of trash as Su Zhaohe. The Soaring Pavilion looked bright and beautiful in the eyes of the world, but it was simply a gathering of scumbags on the inside. If the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. However, the weak were prey to the strong. This was the nature of the cultivation world. Taking Lin Yi's own experience as an example, if he didn't have enough strength, he would have long been trampled to death by Meng Jueguang and his gang. How could he still be alive today? Didn't the Law Enforcement Hall intervene in this matter? Didn't Pavilion Master Shangwan of the Soaring Pavilion ask about it? Lin Yi continued to ask. Lin Yi didn't dare to guarantee what would happen to other people, but after a few interactions, he still trusted Shanghai Tianhua's character. No matter how much of a genius Su Zhaohe was, he believed that Shanghai Tianhua wouldn't cover up such a vile act just because he cherished talent. Brother Ling Yi, you're a wandering cultivator, but you seem to understand the matters of our three great pavilions quite well. Song Jima and the other two looked at Lin Yi in surprise, but they didn't take it to heart. There were many wandering cultivators who wanted to join the three great pavilions, so it was very normal for them to pay more attention to the matters of the three great pavilions. Song Jima sighed and said, actually, the Law Enforcement Hall intervened in that matter. However, that bastard Su Zhaohe went to the Law Enforcement Hall and was released very quickly. The conclusion that the Law Enforcement Hall came to was that there wasn't enough evidence. The most infuriating thing was that bastard actually made a countercharge, saying that Captain Xiaodao framed him. That's simply preposterous. As for Pavilion Master Shangwan, that kind of high and mighty big shot is so busy every day. How would he have time to care about such a small matter? It was said that this case was transferred to the Law Enforcement Hall by the second senior brother of Soaring Sky Pavilion, Su Lingqiong. Pavilion Master Shangwan probably hasn't heard of it all. Su Lingqiong again. Even Lin Yi, an outsider, couldn't help but feel indignant when he heard this. Su Lingqiong, this guy, harbored evil intentions. He himself often did such dirty things. Su Zhaohe could be so arrogant. Maybe he was in cahoots with him. What happened after that? Captain Shoutout didn't think of reversing the verdict. Did she just swallow this resentment? Lin, he said indignantly. If it were him, he would have tried to kill Su Zhaohe long ago. How would he have allowed that scum to live freely to this day? At this time, Huang Xiaotao, the person involved, finally opened her mouth and smiled bitterly. The gap between me and him is so big. What can I do even if I can't bear it? My only wish now is to save up spiritual jades to buy a youth-retaining elixir and restore my appearance. Then, I'll leave the North Island and become a free and unfettered wandering cultivator. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.